a new browser. Just g'day, guys. Another live stream with yours truly and Lord Kay. He's here as well.
Greetings all.
The head of the Meat Militia is here. Special appearance. Have a bit of fun with yours truly and the rest of you bigots out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually trying a different browser this week. I hope that it's a new one that I'm using. It also has better privacy. It's called Brave, the Brave browser. It's got better blocking abilities and stuff like that when it comes to pop-ups and stuff like that. So I'm just hoping that and it also tends to use lower resources on the computer. So because I haven't upgraded my computer yet, I'm hoping that that will resolve some of the actual sort of issues that I've been having occasionally, and clear those up. So we'll see how it all pans out in that regard. Let's just see. We've got about 10 viewing. And that doesn't surprise me. Notifications are really bad now. I mean, YouTube, I've noticed, I've complained, but it doesn't even actually, when I set up a live stream to basically be visible and notifiable from earlier, it just doesn't happen. It happens on the time. And everything else, unless I do a premiere, nothing basically actually will basically be notified earlier. So they've really sort of they're trying to force, like, even when you go into their new menu structure, you probably noticed it, but they've got the menu structure in such a way where they're trying to force you into their own sort of live chatting portal, so that you avoid all the other competition. So they're trying to, I think, squeeze out. It's making it harder. I mean, I tried doing things like editing through StreamYard or whatever to see whether that would actually resolve it by, doing a change or whatever. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Sort of given up on the whole idea that they're not going to be very cooperative. Let's put it that way. We've got Buckley's chance. They're just getting ruder and more annoying, pretty much.
Nothing new there.
No,
nothing new under the sun. Right.
We've got little Blinky here, little Westy.
Goodness me. They let anybody on these live streams, don't they, Harry?
Fuck, they do, exactly.
I know.
And Lukey's here. Good to see.
Just so you know, I've got 1 hour today, Harry, and then I've got to go and do some fucking training.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, because we've got the big event coming up in 12 months, and I intend to be fully prepared for it.
Well, you've committed yourself now, so you no excuses. You got to.
Well, I committed myself several weeks ago, to be fair, and I've been training for a couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, the story. Sort of Rachel's story. Bloody hell, horrific. That.
I wonder why everyone keeps calling her Rachel. Her name is Raquel.
Raquel, sorry. Yeah, it's just habit. Yeah, Raquel.
I like even her late father used to keep calling her Rachel.
Did he? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think it actually was her given name at birth, but she, from a very young age, said, "My name is Raquel," and so she claimed that for herself. And so anyway, yes, there you go.
Is that after the singer, or is it after some
Kiwi
thing that none of us know about?
Okay. No, I don't think it's a Kiwi thing. I just think she didn't like Rachel as a name, I think.
Fair enough. Rebellious from youth. Okay, fair enough.
Oh, yes. I can tell you some stories. Well, I could tell you some stories, but I won't.
No, better not. Be nice.
No.
She's suffered enough.
Well, this is true. I mean, she's suffered 26 years of knowing me for a start. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
I know. Jesus.
She definitely needs a reprieve then. So what's Lukey asking? I've heard that animal fibre, such as collagen tissues, can actually ferment in our guts and provide the same function as the goons claim with plant fibers and all that. Well, no, it doesn't, because all all amino acids are amino acids. You know, basically they get denatured
protein,
in the stomach.
Lukey.
Yeah, it's protein. It's just protein. It's just different types of amino acids.
Yeah.
You know,
you can only ferment something that's made of sugar.
Precisely. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think people don't realize that there are some bacteria. They're not fermenting. They're actually using material. So they're using protein material and fatty acid type material to basically produce certain things. You know, like the Ruteri strain that I talk about, the specific strains. It's not all the strains, but those specific strains that actually have the ability to convert, you know, these materials into folate, B9 and B12. So they have that capacity. But these, you know, they hitch a ride with animal foods because they're primarily found in all land animals, these bacteria. We just lose them because we assault our body with too much antibiotics or glyphosate, which is an antibiotic sort of mimicking or acting type substance. And it basically decimates these sort of these bacterial strains, which are so important and have been with us for a very long time. Even though apparently Food Australia standards basically don't like us actually allowing them to come in, certain types. They just complete and utter, you know, things that have been in the mammalian species for that long. Now they are requiring special studies or whatever. It's crazy. And you guys actually end up with the same standards because it's through Australasia. New Zealand actually follows what's Food Standards Australia puts out there, which is just bunkum. You know, I mean, I've done just recently in this regard about certain probiotics and certain types of strains of bacteria and their importance to in terms of appetite, leptin resistance and all this sort of stuff. And I've actually had a chat recently with Pim, and so she'll be putting that, so I won't go into it, so you'll have to go and watch that to get all the details, all the juicy stuff in regards to that. But it's a thing that people need to realize is, and this is another thing that I mentioned to Bart, we'll have a bit of a chat about, you know, Eric Burgess and his sort of, you know, his continuous claims about, you know, fibre being so important, so necessary.
We better actually crack on with that, Harry, hadn't we? Because I've got an hour.
Yes,
so
yes.
If you've got the Berg video, let's bring it up and we can do the point wise.
That is what I'm about to do.
Very good.
Just give me a sec to actually find it. Because I had to reboot, you know, to ease.
Oh yes.
Those sort of those sort of necessary steps.
Face on, fluffy rainbows. Who more do, bro? NecroKitty's photoshopping.
So let me just find the video.
Welcome to Amateur Hour.
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't set up, you know.
Whatever, it's your show. I'm just here to fill in 1 hour. Yeah. Do you want me to send you the link if you haven't got it?
No, I got it. Okay.
All right, good.
Better select the audio as well.
Yeah. Make sure you tick that box so they won't be able to hear what Eric Berg has to say. Rightio.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly. So this is one of his recent ones, which was on the 10 benefits of fibre.
Very good.
I mean, even
I haven't seen this, by the way. So
the funny thing was, recent times I sort of was hoping that he would basically overcome some of this sort of thinking, because he had basically on occasion said that, look, if you've got certain gut issues and all that, you know, trying the carnivore, you know, a carnivore approach isn't a bad idea. So he was sort of moving in that direction, but he just can't give up on this fiber thing because, well, let's not forget the supplements that he creates that come, you know, the special fiber supplements and all that sort of stuff. And that's where the motivation comes. Ultimately, basically, he wants to push people onto those supplements and say, well, you know, you can't, you know, if you're struggling to have 10 cups of these things, just take the supplement. Ultimately. But he can't say that because then it sort of works against his own narrative in a sense. So this is one of his.
Now, when I'm talking about fiber, I'm talking about vegetable fiber. I'm not talking about grain fiber. I recommend as part of a healthy keto.
So basically, it's these, the green leafies and all that.
Yes, 7 to 10 cups a day of oxalates containing
that's it.
Shite. Good.
Precisely.
Not to mention sulforaphane in there. Good.
Basically, another great toxin for the body. I mean,
yep.
A little bit the body can cope and have a hormetic stress, but we've got so many hormetic stresses in our lives that we just don't need to pack more in.
Correct.
And, it's the last thing we basically need. So I'm not going to, he goes into these sort of about the importance, but the reality is the actual science, and we've seen Dr. Paul Mason's sort of in regards to fiber and how basically contraindicated it is and how bad it is. How when people get off it, they actually feel better. So, and we've got far more anecdotes and also not only anecdotes, but also research to back us up, good research. But these are the sort of things that, he focused on, the 10 type things. 0 effects on insulin. Well, is that really true? I mean, this is the whole notion that, you're going to actually slow down the actual, it's sort of, it relates to this bottom one, buffers blood sugar response, buffers the amount of sugar that can get in at one moment.
There's no such fucking thing. What absolute fucking nonsense, Harry.
It's nonsense. Goodness sake. It is absolute nonsense, exactly, because it doesn't. The thing is, I've actually tried this experiment ages ago when I was doing keto and tried to see, and I actually was pricking my finger and I couldn't see that happening. So it was it's bonkers. Anybody can try it. It's just absolute bonkers. I mean, I've tried other things, like I've eaten just steak, nothing else. I've literally had nothing for the whole day and just had a steak in the afternoon, like a big, massive steak where I struggled to get through. And my blood sugar dropped to 3.7, and my ketones came down slightly, but not, about 1.3 or around about that. So, but I still felt with plenty of energy. I actually went for a long walk after that. So it had no effect on me whatsoever, and it wasn't very low. 3.7 isn't that low? It's not like 2 or whatever, or 2.5 or whatever. Some extreme hypoglycemic sort of shock or whatever. And normally, what do people say? If you have that amount of meat, you should get a big, massive spike in blood glucose. Well, I didn't, because most people don't realize it's a demand driven, and the other side of things is when it comes to the relationship of the ratio of glucagon to insulin, it's quite low. So you're not going to get these. You're not going to get the growth factors like mTOR, IGF-1, insulin spiking like mad. And pretty much, if you're not taking in carbs at the same time, any small excess, if your body requires some glucose, it will generate it through gluconeogenesis. If it doesn't, it can get rid. You can actually urinate out, like you can urinate out. The body can urinate excess and get rid of excess sugar. For diabetics. Well, the same thing with the excess proteins. If it can't hold on to it, it'll get rid of it. The body's not stupid. It has a whole lot of buffering and a whole lot of regulatory systems there. It's just these reductionist crackpots tend to basically view, even at your gut, inside your gut, you've actually got proteins that actually transport in minerals. And the body actually senses, do I have enough? Do I have enough stored? Do I need more? And it will actually work out what you need to get in. And I've discussed this we won't go into it. You can go and watch the videos that I've done on the excretion rates of different minerals and how we get more than enough. And we probably don't even take most of it, what we eat, because we get more than enough to maintain that homeostasis. As long as we're getting enough salt to basically keep those, that homeostasis between the intra and extracellular, we've got no problems. We won't get any issues. But let's get back to this. Then he goes on, contains phytonutrients, vitamins and minerals. Well, a lot of the minerals are chelated.
Yeah.
And a lot of the bloody vitamins, especially vitamin A, most people or a lot of people are very poor converters of a lot of these things, and you can get a lot of the water soluble vitamins from animal products. In some cases, in greater amounts. So that's not a non-issue. And phytonutrients basically are just a toxin.
Yep.
So it'll give you a hermetic effect, but do you want more hermetic effect?
No,
then
I don't personally.
Yeah, exactly. Then binds to bile regulation. I haven't actually seen any. Have you ever seen any mechanistic proof that is actually what is happening?
Which
binds to bile. What he talks about.
No, I've never seen anything like that. And,
I've
even if it did, so what? What?
Exactly.
And in fact, that would sound completely contraindicated because bile is there to do a specific fucking role. So why would you want anything else bound to it?
And the other thing is your bile actually at the bottom of the actual small intestine, it actually gets recycled, the majority of it. So it is a way of cleansing that part. The last thing you want to be doing is binding and taking it out and basically reducing your bile amount in your body, especially if you're eating these sort of foods, poor foods. But I have never seen anything in the literature, and I have never seen any mechanistic proof that this thing is happening anyway. So, as I say to people, if they mention this, I actually did challenge one person when they did mention something similar to this. I said, show me some evidence. They never answered back. I never got an answer because there is none. I haven't found any. I've looked on PubMed, but I haven't found anything that actually shows mechanism that this actually is happening. Feeds microflora. Yes, so do many other things.
Exactly.
And do you want massive overgrowth as well? I
don't personally. No.
Yeah, exactly.
I also want my microbiota to be controlled by, molded by, designed by my intake of food, which I intend to keep species appropriate and species specific. So why would I need to artificially feed myself a food that is not fit for human consumption in order to subserve a range of microbiota that have no fucking business being in my body in the first place?
Exactly. And then when he talks about energy, there is basically, I actually discussed this with Pim in the so I won't go into it, but it actually, this overproduction of energy also can have some deleterious effects, which I discussed with her, and you'll have to wait until that video to get that that reply. So I won't go into it at this stage. Then he goes on, short chain fatty acid has blood sugar control. If I eat, 200 or 300 grams of carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, it's going to have no bloody, control over it. That's going to go right in. So, I mean, that is just basically nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. There's no mechanism for it. I mean, God almighty, so that's just bonkers as far as I'm concerned. And the last thing you want is, additional short chain fatty acids while you're actually getting a whole lot of sugar coming in at the same time, hitting the liver. Wonderful. That really, especially if you're in ApoE4, that really wreaks havoc in you because you're getting also the chylomicron remnants that are coming flooding in at the same time. So you'll get, overflow and end up, even leakage and into your bloodstream of glucose, which will cause a whole lot of glycation. That's why those people are more vulnerable with those ancestral type ApoE variants compared to others. So, I mean, it just doesn't make any logical sense. It's just the normal, typical garbage that's out there.
Tell you what, if you want to control your blood sugar, Harry, stop fucking eating sugar. How about
that? Simple.
Or things that break down into sugar. All of them. So that's carbohydrates. Where do we get that from? Oh, yeah, plants.
Yeah,
fuck's sake.
Yeah. Then
this is why you don't listen to backcrackers who are Scientologists for health information. This is why you listen to scientists for scientific information. This is fucking ridiculous.
It is absolutely crazy stuff. The other one helps regulate pH in the colon.
No, it doesn't. Absolute nonsense.
It's again that sort of alkaline nonsense. You know, I know it's just crap. I know it's crap.
Yeah.
It's
there is absolutely no mechanistic science there of any kind. That is absolute garbage.
This is the killer. This is the killer. Helps regulate transit time. So peristalsis.
We know it fucking
slows it down like shit.
Exactly.
Backs you up like mad.
That's right. Jams you up. Causes constipation. Yes, causes constipation, not solves constipation. Yeah,
it's been proven. You know.
Well, careful, Harry, careful.
I better not say that.
N equals about 62. So
that's true. That's true.
It was a pretty strong finding, but let's not say it's causal. Let's just say
one
piece of evidence that exists tells us that
it is the strongest evidence we have, but it's not causal. That's true. Yeah, you're right. Then
of course I'm right. Goodness me.
Come on, Lord. Be nice to me.
I'm always nice to you, Harold. Always nice.
Helps regulate lipids.
No, it doesn't. And what lipids need regulating?
That's what I mean.
And what lipids are not already fucking
regulated? Exactly. Precisely.
Your body has systems in place for that.
Exactly. And, and plenty of transcripted, we've got genes that basically codify to regulate all that.
Yeah.
We need fibre to regulate it? That's a new one.
No, we don't. Goodness me.
Then it has anti-cancer effects.
No, it doesn't. Again, complete, utter nonsense.
It is absolute bonkers. I mean, if we know anything, basically the last thing you want to do, the worst thing that causes gut injury, like diverticulitis and stuff like that, is basically raw vegetables that have got little micro hooks in them. You can actually see them under an electron microscope that literally come through and tear and cause small tears in the actual gut wall. So why would you basically assault your villi in that regard and then say that it actually is has an anti-cancer effect? Well, it does just not make sense whatsoever. It's again the same bonkers stuff that it's sort of buffering the sugar. Well, the sugar's actually taken up in the small intestine anyway, so it's not buffering anything down there.
Eric has clearly read one or two epidemiology papers.
Basically,
he's a scientist now.
Pretty
he's not.
Much,
he's a backcracker that thinks the human race is actually the souls of a bunch of aliens that crashed on Earth several million years ago, and they're just waiting for the alien overlords to come and repair them or repair them, I should say. And actually, the way to find out these secrets is to pay more money to the Church of Scientology. That's the kind of.
Is that where all his money's going to?
I would say so. Yeah, Eric Berger's bought his way to the top echelon. He knows all the secrets of Scientology now that the general public don't get to
all
find out.
All the handshakes and everything else.
Oh, I know. He knows the secrets of the aliens that we don't know.
Oh God!
And
he's up there with the gods.
That's it. He has access to the epidemiology and knows all about Scientology and stuff.
And the last one is just basically complete bonkers. We've already it relates to the first, and it's just complete and utter nonsense. And it's this sort of stuff that I actually wanted to point out to people that, the type of gut microbiome you'll get, because also the short chain fatty acid, you get more acetone. Well, if you get too much glucose, that actually can convert back to glucose. So, and it's a bit like, and then if you've got excess glucose, far too much than the body can handle, you'll go from 3% to 30% conversion to fructose, and then basically shoot it out through VLDL, to store away in a happy place around your waist. So these sort of things that are touted as being, helpful, actually lead people down that pathway of basically guzzling down these things and then basically thinking, oh yeah, I can have a cheat, I can have more cheats and stuff like that, ending up engaging the Randall cycle and ending up becoming fatter or unhealthier over time. Or if they go really hard on this stuff, ending up malnourished and, with malnutrition, like we get with the vegans in particular. They go really hard on this sort of crap. And
if I sound like this kind of stuff pisses me off, Harry, it's because this kind of stuff fucking pisses me off. This is ridiculous garbage.
Oh, look, I feel exactly the same way.
Absolutely everything on that list is a load of fucking nonsense.
And there's not one piece of evidence that he can bring forward to basically back any of this up.
Nope.
It's all epidemiology. It's all observational. It's all crap. We know what it is. All the, the sort of the 7-day Adventist studies, the BS studies and all that sort of stuff. There is no real clinical studies that actually show this. When you do clinical studies like the one that Paul Mason actually showed us, you actually see the complete opposite.
Yeah.
When you're in controlled conditions and you control the amount of fiber, it follows the Bradford Hill criteria in terms as you increase the dose of something or reduce the dose of something, it actually basically it's a dose response. You get either relief or you get feeling a hell of a lot worse either way. So it fulfills that. So it has strong, sort of. We don't have causation, but we have strong evidence compared to all the other evidence that's out there, which is much weaker.
Do you know, Harry? Do you really have any evidence, or is it just anecdotes that you have?
Oh, it must be anecdotes.
Because it's all ethical. There's nothing to do with health, really. It's all ethical, you see.
Basically, yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't take this stuff for health reasons, apparently. Just Burgess sort of believes it, or no, maybe not actually, but I wouldn't say believes it or disbelieves it, but I would say a product is reliant on it to be believable. If you're selling a product that basically touts fiber, you got to basically somehow make it look better than it is. Sort of, let's say, exaggerate the epidemiological nonsense and bullshit. I thought you'd like this one. What else is it? Let's just take a quick look at what else he has on his site.
Well, we know what sort of thing he's into.
Oh yeah. I sort of like to keep track of him because basically he's one of the people that a lot of people follow.
0.9 million subscribers.
Exactly.
Over 4 million people think this absolute crackpot arsehead wank spanner is a good source of information.
And I'm actually going to do this.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
Because
what is wrong with people?
I deliberately had it. And I deliberately did that because that's what people should do. And I've actually noticed a lot of people that sub to me, to you, and to a few other people are subbing to him. And you're getting absolute nonsense. If it's not apple cider vinegar, let's guzzle down apple cider vinegar. Let's damage our teeth,
isn't it?
Yeah, let's damage our teeth enamel. That's what we should do. We should damage our teeth enamel. Rather than actually eat species appropriate food that basically will give us the type of probiotics, which is the lactose reuteri, the rhamnosus, those ones that basically actually improve the actual functioning of your oral microbiome. So if you eat species appropriate food, you will get the right bacterial strains, and that's where obviously food sourcing plays a big role. Pastured, we're pretty lucky in our part of the world, we can access those pastured foods and get those important things into the food supply. Pim's trying to drag you away, mate. What are you consuming there?
Oh, that's
what is
creatine monohydrate,
epicatechin,
and citrate.
Gotcha.
And I took that with my 1 o'clock dose of 4 green pills. And that alarm was just to tell me that it's 1 o'clock and it's time to take 4 green pills and drink some epicatechin with some creatine monohydrate and some citrate. So I did.
Gotcha. You are training up after all. That's true. You do.
I am training hard. I'm training hard.
That's right.
I've also put on several kilos in what is clearly muscle tissue already. So Which is interesting because I was told that won't be possible if I don't eat any amount of
I have a
carbohydrates.
recent question from someone.
Yeah. Oh, look. Yeah. A lot of people say that, but apparently all these old bodybuilders that were actually eating, steak and eggs and all that, they apparently were able to do it.
Funny, that, isn't it?
Yeah, really funny. It is, exactly. I mean, people don't realize what is actually driving muscle protein synthesis. They've actually done studies and they've actually shown people without carbs or with carbs or whatever, and there's not much difference. With this, we're talking about the same person, but doing like crossover type changing. And so, if you're not getting sufficient leucine, or you're basically not getting enough protein in particular, and you're not basically doing the sort of the loading type, if you're not doing the right exercise, you're not getting the right foods in, you're not going to build, no matter what.
There you go, Harry. Richard's just got his notification half an hour after you've gone live.
Yeah,
good fucking work, YouTube. Absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding, YouTube. Brilliant.
And that's what pisses me off. I've complained to them. They don't care. They just basically ignore, or they come up with some excuse. Most of the time recently, they haven't even replied back. They haven't even had the decency of replying.
It's because you're nobody, Harry, as far as they're concerned. So basically,
yeah. That's their sort of attitude. Now, this is a bit of I do have some worries with this one, because he actually talks about niacin. Now, obviously, niacin flushing and all that isn't a problem, but he also goes on to talk about, further on, that you can take higher doses, that it's, it's good in terms of, sort of controlling, sugar and lipids and stuff like that. And I'm going, why would you want to do that? As I've said to my supporters, you do not want to go over 300 milligrams. And he's recommending, 1 gram or, quite a bit, or 2 or whatever. This is what they actually, to manage cholesterol and all that, this is what they used niacin in the past. The problem is it shuts down lipolysis. It shuts at those levels. He's talking about a ketogenic diet. He's going to put people into hypoglycemic shocks if they do that. Shuts down gluconeogenesis. It actually interferes with a whole lot of pathways in your liver. It's the last thing you want to do. And then he basically talks about slow release as if it's nothing, and doesn't realize there are actually studies out there showing slow release can be very toxic to the liver, and you should not be taking that sort of stuff. I usually if I get enough niacin from my food, I'll only take half a tablet. I try to always keep below 300. Yes, it does improve redox potential. It does also, the sort of enzymes that break down NAD plus, actually it reduces them back to more youthful levels to some extent. So it helps in a number of ways. But at the same time, there is a dose dependent. You take too much, you're going to have problems. And a lot of the animal products, in particular, bacon is quite high. So if I have like bacon on the day and pork and all that, I won't take a tablet at all. Simple as that. So if I have certain meats, if I'm fasting, I may take basically a whole tablet, 250. If I'm not, I usually take half of one, because I've got some niacin from the other animal products. But if I have in particular pork, which tends to be much higher, and also like tuna, stuff like that tends to be higher. So if I have those foods, I usually just give the tablet a miss completely. So it's one of those things that I sort of started initially to improve my mitochondrial sort of functioning. And then I was slightly higher for a while, and then I realized I started doing research when I was doing low carb, and I realized it is problematic. So I tapered it back from about 500. I never went to 1,000, which was a good thing. But, I learned that you actually end up with better results tapering it back rather than going higher. But he doesn't even explain any of this. He ignores this completely, and he's promoting a keto lifestyle, and then he's telling people to take massive amounts that are going to interfere with that lifestyle.
I'm not going to go 7 to 10 cups a day of
that's right. That's right. It's bonkers. It's
make no mistake. Eric Berg is a complete fucking idiot who you should not take any advice from on any matter, except if you want your back cracked, because that's what he's trained in.
That's basically it. And I just wanted to point these things out to people. They need to know that, because you potentially could basically take this advice and actually cause yourself harm.
Yes.
So that's really important. I mean, there's probably others we could go, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. I want to, chat about a few other things potentially. I did actually, your recent conversation with that vegan from Eastern Europe.
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting.
It was fun, wasn't it? That was good fun.
Yes. I mean, I noticed you enjoyed yourself, but it was like talking to a brick wall.
Oh my God. She literally said, the problem why we are all dying is because we are all breathing too much. We must breathe less.
Hold your breath, guys. Hold your breath. See how long you can hold it. If you pass out, bad luck.
We're all breathing too much. That's why we're dying.
And if you pass out, you did it wrong.
That's it.
Basically.
All right, good. Yep. And then, she was completely incapable of holding a logical thought process for more than 3 seconds. Her whole tactic, and she was mouthing off before this so-called debate. It was a discussion.
Yeah, she was
mouthing off
struggling
before the whole thing, saying she was going to wreck me, she was going to destroy me, she was going to make me look stupid, all this kind of stuff. Her whole tactic was to attack N15 testing, having not first done any research on that, or having first not got the first fucking clue about N15 testing or anything relating to
that.
N15
was absolutely
testing.
laughable. She didn't even know
she had a crack.
What tissues it was in. They were looking at the collagen. She had no idea.
She had a crack. She got destroyed within with 3 seconds, and then her whole tactic for the rest of the discussion was to keep changing the topic to all sorts of other ridiculous things that have got nothing to do with anything. Absolutely typical vagoonery, veg-tardery.
And how crazy can you be to say that because plants because when you eat a fruit, it doesn't have any, that basically when you're registering this, it's sort of something, it's a contradiction, how can you have high this and you're eating plants and it doesn't have any, but for some reason that is wrong. It just didn't make sense. I'm going, there's a bit of computational error somewhere in there.
Her whole tactic was to ask me a question, and her question was, "Can you tell me what elements are contained in carbohydrates, please?" And I said, "Of course I can. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, love. What did you think? Why do you think it's called CHO or CHO for short?" "Oh, well, you're talking about N15 testing, which is about nitrogen, and carbs don't have any nitrogen. So how can N15 testing tell us how much protein people have been eating from plants and animals?" I'm like, oh my God, are you really that fucking clueless?
Yep.
Clearly you are. Okay, well, here's your answer. Blah, blah. Anyway, if you haven't seen it, go and look at the thing.
Exactly. We're not going to go over that.
Tommy and Ryan's very fun YouTube channel, which is called Road to Recovery. Good fun.
But
a lot of good fun.
It was very funny. But I've got a bit of a surprise for you. Let me just share this.
I don't surprise easily, Harry.
You will with this one.
Oh, good.
Okay, now this is UN data on deaths per 1,000 people.
Yes.
This is historical data. So back in the 1950s, 20.15 people died in 1,000. Yeah. And that's this year. Yes. I see the trend line going down, not going up. And then this is the nonsense. This is then the nonsense. This is projections. So these guys are just projecting. They're making shit up.
Yeah. So exactly, they're guessing.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what they actually show, and this is actually what they show in their projections. So you can actually see they're pushing a narrative.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing new in the fact that they're pushing a narrative that's not based.
But when you're looking at historical and trend lines and all that, that trend isn't. I mean, even here, yes, these are annual changes, that shifts. So you can see look at the shifts here, how minor they are. Look at in the past how massive they've been, where you've had 1 year where more people have died quite a bit, and then the next year, you know, and we're talking about here, you know, in terms of statistics, it's not massive, but it looks massive because that's the magnification. It's, you know, 3 extra or 1 extra person or whatever per 1,000. And as you can see here, look at that. That was last year. That's this year. And we're nearly at the end of the year. So that's complete data. Nearly complete data. Do you see much difference between the in terms of change we're talking about? Change of deaths between one year and another.
I've been saying all year that the death rates are not any different.
Where's the difference? Where's the difference? Even their projections, their short-term projections don't show any change. Then they actually increase them because they're doing this bullshit. And they have to show that. So absolutely none. There was actually between 2018 and 2019, there was a bigger change. So that was, you know, the previous sort of flu season where we had in some parts of the world a bigger death toll. So this is really important because it actually is taking data basically, which is aggregated by the UN. And then this side has actually pulled the data together that's been aggregated and showing exactly what the, you know, the macro trends are and stuff like that. I don't care about speculation in future because that's just speculation as far as I'm concerned until it happens. The amount of times these people get it wrong, I just ignore all that. But up until this point, I see a trend line of deaths going down, and I see a difference between last year and this year of next to nothing.
Correct.
So basically, as I said, you are correct, Bart. You know,
of course I am. I'm always correct. I said that before, Harry.
On this point, they were absolutely wrong about, you know, the amount of deaths and all that. So yeah, it's another bit of bullshit. But this is really important that people basically can actually see the information for themselves and not be hoodwinked, because that's what we're getting. We're getting people being hoodwinked.
No. They don't want people to have information. They want people to follow the narrative. Information is not where it's at, Harry. You must follow the narrative or else you are a bigot.
Pretty much.
And you want people to die, Harry.
And let's not forget you're Lord Bigot.
That's it. Or arch bigot. Indeed, if you ask Tristan, I'm the arch bigot.
Yeah, but don't over try to acquire too many titles.
Oh, I've got plenty already, I think.
I mean, exactly. And the thing is, we're going to be basically confused. We'll have to use an alias for you eventually.
Maybe that's what I want.
Hey, never ask for things like that, because you never know with this crowd what you may get.
Oh, I've got a fair idea.
Especially this one.
Yes, I know what that guy's all about.
And this one.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I'm actually Lord of Aberdeenshire in Scotland, T2, if you must know. My lordship is derived from a traditional Highland title because I own a plot of land in Aberdeenshire in the Highlands of Scotland. So there you go.
Yes. Are you 100% Scottish? Are you 100% Scottish? Are you 100% Scottish or partly? Okay.
No, I'm partly Scottish. Yeah. Thank you, Lucky.
Mixed heritage.
Yes. The rest of my forebears are those that aren't Scottish are all English in 2 generations back, via Australia on my father's side and directly to New Zealand from England on the other side.
There you go.
So both my sets of grandparents came from the British Isles somewhere, basically.
Yeah. Look, when it comes to, I mean, I know that I can go back a couple of generations with my family, but then there's a lot of stories where they came from beyond that point. And there's a lot of contradictory stories, and still family members continue arguing over where they originally came from. I've looked at my own genes, and they're primarily predominant from the southeast of the Peloponnese. So where Sparta is, that sort of part. I'm not saying I'm Spartan descent, but I'm saying from the predominant from that area of Greece. So, and a lot of family members say, no, you know, there were Serpanos that came from the Constantinople, from the city. So there are arguments in the family, and I just, you know, gloss over. And go,
Harry, you better bring up that thing that NecroKitty is sharing there in the chat. That's pretty amusing. Hello, honest as fuck. How are you?
I will.
Yeah, bring that one up. That's good for a laugh. Well done, NecroKitty. Well done.
Nice one. Nice one.
Very good. Very good. Da-da-da, da-da-da.
Oops.
There it is.
Yes.
And
it's part of our facial, yes.
NecroKitty has called it bart.kay. Very good. Very good.
God.
Lovely.
Yes. As I said, the deviants, the absolute deviants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, absolute deviants, yes. A lot of them.
Yes, you know? Especially NecroKitty and her titties.
Oh. That's it.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like that.
Mm-hmm. Glams wants to know whether I still believe the COVID-19 is real and existing. Yes, it is real and it does exist. Absolutely.
Yes, we've got pretty good, you know, electron microscopes and all sorts of other things that we know what it is. We've sequenced a lot of the stuff. We're able to take proteins for the vaccine and all sorts of things. So it's not as if we don't know. The issue is, how lethal is it? That's, you know, or what is the real death toll, or whether we will require to decimate our economies to basically protect ourselves. Or it's more the socioeconomic issues rather than actually the health viral type issues that we're arguing about. So so people need to basically just understand the difference and separate the two, because they're not exclusively, you know, one's talking about health and it's over exaggeration, and the other is an issue about freedoms, economic you know, dislocation and poverty and all the other ramifications, and also that it actually accelerates the rentier state. What does that mean? That actually means that if you basically impoverish enough people, it means the money people that can actually get very low credit at very low interest rates, those money men can buy up everything and basically cause people. And that's why, you know, when we talk about, you know, like, you know, Bobby and many others talk about the sort of situation where these sort of people say, you don't need to own anything. You just basically need to live in our cities and eat our kibble. You know, that basically means they just want to turn you into a serf, and they want to control your life and feed you and everything. So this is moving away from, this is a sort of it's a sort of a feudal capitalism that they're trying to create. A place where they control everything and they control your life, and they feed you the information they want to, and they feed you the foods they want to. You know, so that is the sort of the creeping sort of direction we're heading towards, this dystopia that we need to basically, you know, start coming to our senses and promoting the information that's going to help other people to avoid going down that path, or supporting the sort of the political direction that's being pushed at the moment through the media, through the political class and many others, and through the wealth class, obviously, because they've got the biggest vested interest in it. Anyway, I'm just going to cruise through this because I've really fallen behind in that regard. So everybody gets a bit of a good day, Alex. And Nurse Trouble's trying to keep them in line, but has no chance in hell. Good luck with those T2 and T1, you know, feral 1 and feral 2, you know, out of control. I did troll them recently. I did have a bit of fun with them. You know, they didn't bite back much. You know, do I intimidate that much?
I don't know.
And increases transit time and does regulate. Scotty, you're being facetious, I bet. Yes, we've got multiple characters. Somebody's mousing around, aren't they? Yes. Good people? Yeah, good bigoted people, you mean?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, it can be good for a laugh. But also, you know, when you look behind the veil, I think there are other forces that basically he's part of. So I wouldn't consider him the best source, or even, you know, sometimes some of that information can get through the protection or the defense and can confuse people. Unfortunately, that's where the problem lies. So, you know, I mean, that's what as I was chatting with Bart on this issue, that there's a lot of things that this man says that we need to, and it's a bit like, you know, Thomas basically is quite clear, open that he's selling product, so he's not hiding anything. The problem with Thomas is that he actually tends to exaggerate a lot of things, or try to make things more, you really need this type thing, again in a reductionist way, using just one single study or whatever to try and convince you that you need to basically pack another supplement into the kit. And it just
Thomas has
basically
no training at all. Thomas DeLauer, if that's what you're talking about, he has no training.
That's who I'm talking about. Yeah,
none at all. So why would you
basically
listen to Thomas?
crazy, exactly. And it's sort of crazy, the sort of stuff that he's constantly pushing, all these different products, keto treats or whatever. He goes into different supermarkets and promotes different stuff and all that. And I'm going, guys, you know, this, you know, if you go back a couple of thousand years, this stuff didn't exist. I mean, even 100 years, this stuff didn't exist. Why are you putting something that comes out of a factory down your throat? It's going to cause you grief in the long run. And the problem is, a lot of people on the keto, they tend to basically use a lot of these as snacks in between meals. They're constantly snacking on this sort of shit. And it's not like having a one day. I mean, as I've said, I'm not perfect myself, and you know,
Harry,
I'll have a bit of ice cream on the Saturday, like yesterday.
But at the same time, girls?
Yes,
Harry says he's not perfect.
How could that be?
Fuck me, what's going on in the world today?
I know. The world's gone to shit, hasn't it? Crazy.
It has. Well, we joke about that, Harry, but it really fucking has.
It has.
The world has absolutely turned to custard. And the majority of the people in the world are absolutely fucking complicit with it. It disgusts me. Wake up.
Yeah. It's madness. And the thing is, you know, we used to have traditional sort of, you know, states, we call them statespeople now, but statesmen back then, that basically stood up to power. You know, politicians have basically said, no, you know, the military-industrial complex, like Eisenhower said, it needs to be brought under control. It's a dangerous entity that could basically, you know, or this organization or that organization has a potential of basically pushing agendas that actually could hurt or harm a lot of people. Problem is, in the recent times, these people actually run the show. They're not just basically pushing, they're not basically just lobbying anymore. They're actually literally running the show. And that's the difference.
How dare you, Harry? Do you want people to die? How dare you question the authorities?
Yes.
How you question the science?
We are murderers.
That's it. You just want people to die. You're a bad person, people. Harry.
Yes, exactly.
If you don't muzzle yourself and stay away from people and hide under your bed and don't walk your dog, but absolutely do go to the shops yourself.
Should I get a personalized cage for home? Do you think
absolutely
next
a bubble?
Level?
Yes, a sealed hermetic bubble that you never leave. ever.
Well, sounds perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bubble. Yeah. Bubble Harry. It even rhymes.
Even if you are partly to blame, Rich, I think we'll just go ahead and blame YouTube because they suck ass.
Exactly. Look, the biggest problem is the notifications do come late, and other people, if at all, and people have told me that I didn't get a notification. I didn't realize you had a live stream. And in the past, all my live streams were actually, when I actually would set it all up, it would be there posted and visible. You could see that there was a live stream scheduled. Now, none of my live streams in the last month are actually shown in my video list. They don't come up at all. And it's a mixed bag what notifications people get, which basically means that I could literally turn up and just go live right now, at any time, because it makes no difference. Because me promoting or trying to put it out there or making my subs aware of it just doesn't happen anymore. They just do not promote. And some people do get a bit, some people don't get any, and it's just crazy. Or sometimes some people have told me they have had multiple notifications in a day, not one, but multiple, and they're going, how many times do I need to be notified? So no idea whether this is, deliberate, whether the AIs are crazy like the rest of them. It really seems like weird. And nobody's taking responsibility as well, which is typical of Google and their subsidiaries. They pretty much behave in the same bloody way. Yes. So some of the stuff that we've been talking about, these lovely people are either clapping about or in that regard. Oh, well, that's typical.
I know,
He's training. He's training. He can't do that. He's training.
Training like a madman. Speaking of which, our time has actually elapsed, Harry. I need to go and do said training. I'm going to go and assault those fucking stairs again. 355 stairs, 80 meters of vertical displacement over a horizontal distance of about 300 or 400 meters. It is a gut buster. It's an absolute killer. I'm going to go and do that for a couple of repetitions of that. And then when I get back, I may well put 20 kilos on my back and go for a walk as well. I went yesterday for a 12K or 7.5 mile walk for those that speak in tongues. And I did that in gumboots, by the way, just for fun.
Gumboots?
In the hills up the back of Nelson.
Shit,
there.
that would have been.
So it's quite a bit hard. And it was the rocky path sort of situation, but there was quite a bit of mud about, and I was like, put my gumboots on and anyway, we ended up doing 7.5 miles in gumboots. So 4 feet. Anyway, I better go and make them even worse.
See you. Have fun. And
later on, don't do anything I would.
You've spoken too early. I mean, if you say that, it just encourages those two trolls. You should know. Don't do anything. It's just like
don't do anything I would.
Like a red rag to a bull with them too.
All right, I better go and explode my lungs and my muscles and shit.
Mate,
and
thanks for turning up. I appreciate it. Take care and keep well and keep up with the training. And I know you're going to make it. And it's for a good cause. There are a lot of people out there that need that support, and you need to set up. Are you going to be setting up eventually some sort of social media page, like a Facebook page or something?
And it looks like most likely we'll have to set up a new charity because none of the existing charities deserve a cent. Frankly,
fair enough. That's okay.
And neither do anything fucking useful or practical for people who have been victims. I mean, I spoke to Raquel about it briefly and said, look, are there any New Zealand charities? And she was like, not a one. To this day, she receives not an ounce of support from fucking anybody for what she's been through.
Look, it's a strange thing that sort of, it's like domestic violence and things like that. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's like swept under the carpet. Nobody wants to deal with it, but a lot of people have their lives devastated because of it.
Yeah. And how long did that take, Martej? It took 3 hours and 20 minutes, 7.5 miles in gumboots. That's what it took. Anyway, bit of race, Harry, and we'll catch up later.
Definitely.
Have a good one.
Take care. See you, mate.
Yep.
And regards to Pim.
All right, will do. Catch ya.
Well, back to me, guys. Let's move rapidly through some of this sort of stuff. Yeah, it can help. But fasting, exercise can do just as well in that regard. So it's not necessary. Plus oxalates, having a bit of a treat now and then, but don't overdo it. G'day, Mandy. Good to see you. Oh, look, she was okay, but she's locked into the sort of that paradigm and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, very much the brainwashing has actually happened until she falls apart, as Bart said, and then eventually she'll realize that it's a misanthropic diet. Sometimes people have to suffer to learn. It's a really unfortunate thing. Okay. Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I occasionally watch some of Tristan stuff and occasionally jump on some of his live streams and make a few comments now and then and whatever. But it depends it's usually I'm at work when his live streams are running. And if I've got time, I'm not in a meeting or something, or I'm not caught up with something, I'll jump on if I am, so I may have missed it when she was on there, is what I'm trying to see. Yes, please hit the like button. Hit the like button, please. And do share if you can. There's a helicopter out there. Some distance. I'm being monitored. Ips, StreamYard just decided to go nutty on me. Okay, you guys, Discord. Okay, yep. More comments. Yep. And comments. Yes, go and join the Discord. I should try and make an appearance one of these days. And yes, thank you. Exactly. That green stuff really has improved. It's like green hair. It's like one of those caricature things. Thanks, Kitty, for the laughs. Yes, he does. Like me. It definitely is. We know it is. It's just basically not as lethal. It's just like the flu. Maybe a bit more contagious than the flu. But it's not like a pandemic is something that actually ravages the whole of society. Okay? Let me just explain this for people to understand. 1918 was a pandemic. Why? It basically killed young and old. Didn't matter who it got. If you were young, a child, or an old person, and you got it, and you were susceptible for whatever reason, you were dead. Okay? It killed many people. But this one leaves all the young and even the middle age alone. And it just really culls the old who have got comorbidities, very similar to what the flu does. So compared to SARS-1, the initial, and SARS-2, which is what this one is much weaker than the previous one. It's less mutagenic, so it doesn't mutate as much. And the other thing is it's also less, you could say, less lethal compared to the other one. Slightly more virulent, but less lethal. So it can actually spread quicker, but it kills much less. So because even flu virus, they are also part of the sort of corona family, an extended part of that. So the only difference is that it occasionally one will become both a good spreader and quite lethal, like the 1918 situation. But, we haven't had something like that. If we had something like that, yes. In the first couple of months, we should have realized that that wasn't the case because it wasn't taking out young people. And we should have basically realized, nah, this is not like, basically the Swedes understood this. They realized they'd looked because they had actually had people that had managed these issues. They didn't politicize the whole thing. They just said to the people, how should this be managed? They looked at it. They looked at the evidence at that point, and they said, well, this seems more like a traditional flu, or a flu that is slightly worse than the actual flu. And so basically they just let it run its course. The rest of us followed China and locked everything down like mad. And that's why our economies are in a mess like this. And a lot of people have lost their livelihood. Many people that had businesses or jobs, careers and all that have lost them. If you're in your 50s or whatever, try starting up again, or, it's not going to happen. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to basically potentially take their lives. Unfortunately, I hope they don't, but it's going to happen, or are going to really struggle because, so. No, it's definitely not the seasonal flu. Believe me, that's just what I know. I noticed that point. It's not lambs. It's basically a separate. They've actually worked out the actual protein structure and everything. It's not as if they don't know it. The only difference is the politics. The politics are different this time around, and that's where the problem lies. And certain forces seem in society to be exploiting it for their own nefarious interests. That's where the other problem lies. Yeah, he's a bit of a tease. Nah. You guys don't give him hell enough. You're too soft on him. Especially this one. Bloody, what a sort of, God, soft bird. Or soft cock. Sperm in hand. Oh God, sperm in hands. Fabnado, mate. You're a worry. But thanks for the laugh. You should try the Ruteri. It actually increases sperm. That the strains that I've been talking about does help in that regard. According, I was told, we go back to Roman Empire, family of Caesar. Good for you. Yes, I've been told stories like that because on my father's side, they were gentry. They actually controlled whole areas of land, and even on my mother's side. But, when the world turns upside down and you move from a feudal state to a capitalist state, those who were once masters can become servants. That's how the world goes. So, yes. What our past were, mine were pretty up there, but not anymore to the same level. Well, there's a few of them that are still up there within the political class of Greece. Have been ministers and all sorts of things, but yes. Anyway, let's move on. Nothing like a Photoshop job to sort someone out. Exactly. You could be very creative with bird brain. No, chicken. You're a chicken, aren't you? You're really a chicken. You're not a bowerbird. You're a chicken. Just be honest about it. I'm actually making some traction. Moving very quickly through these. Nobody's asking questions, which is a good thing. We've had 400 influenza deaths this year against 6,000 every other season, every year. Look, the sort of lockdown also limited the numbers as well. Let's be honest, it did. But we probably, if we look at Sweden and other countries that didn't lock down, they had very similar numbers to the seasonal flu, slightly bigger, some less, depending on how many deaths with people with comorbidities happened the previous years. So countries that had higher death rates, like Greece had higher death rates in terms of older people that had comorbidities and died from influenza the previous years. Italy didn't. So this time around, Italy suffered far more, and they're still suffering because they've got older people with comorbidities that weren't taken out by the previous year's flu. But in Greece, it's been less of a problem. Again, it's because basically those who are more vulnerable are going to be taken out compared to others. And there are some that are younger because of a whole lot of genetics and a whole lot of other things and sometimes we don't know, some underlying conditions that they haven't diagnosed. There's a lot of issues, and a lot of that's privacy, so we'll never know about the information. So it'll come out in the wash later on when a lot of studies are done and stuff like that. But by that stage, we'll have moved on, and the politics will have moved on as well. People won't look back to see what really happened and understand it properly. That's the problem. We live in the moment. They're actually not. Some of them actually have compounds, but they actually come from a sort of a bacteria, a cyanobacteria. So it's actually a bacteria in the water. It's not spirulina, So they do have in another product a variant of spirulina, but it's not the same thing in that regard. You just have to go and contact Bart if you want more details about the products and all that sort of stuff. That's his business and stuff like that. They're all the same, mate. I have very little respect for both sides of politics nowadays. I'm a promoter of direct democracy because both these camps basically serve the elites. They basically tell you, vote for this crowd or vote for that crowd, and eventually the same people. If you take a look at when Trump came in, he appointed some ex-bankers. Do you think they were going to allow him? They can allow him to do other erratic things, but do you think they were going to allow him to run the economy? Yeah, and he knew it. He wasn't going to take a risk of being assassinated. It's America is the country of assassinating their presidents if they get in their way of the financiers. So he knew how far he could go and how far he couldn't go. And it's the same thing with all these people that come into power. They're basically just, pawns. They are yes men. Some of them a bit more open about it and some of them a bit less. But yeah, my opinion, direct democracy, fuck them all off. Anyway, we've done it before. We can do it again. If millions of us get out in the streets and say we're not going to accept this political class anymore and we want radical, changes, what are the thing? They're going to kill us all? Nah, not going to happen. But as long as they keep us disunited fighting amongst ourselves, they can pick us off very easy when you're disunited. And that's what they use social media to magnify the tension between people over idiotic things in most cases. Anyway. Good to see you here, mate. Good to see you. Harry used to stalking your whole life. Exactly. They need it. They need it. Definitely need it. You're delusional. Truly delusional. God, I thought I was delusional. God almighty. Thanks, Mandy. Oops. Ah. No, don't move. Don't shift. Yeah. Oh, well, look, he's doing it for a good cause if he does set something up in that regard. Ah, damn moved. And hi, Harry is eating 2 ounces of white rice, very glycating. Not as much as anything that's got fructose. Well, look, if you had nothing else, yeah, it's not something that I would eat, to be honest. But you could also, with autophagy, eat your own body in a sense, but you can only do that for a very short amount of time. But it's probably the least egregious thing if you don't react badly to rice as a grain. Probably not. You got a bit of energy out of it. That's about it. But you wouldn't do it long term because you will start wasting away your own muscles, and that's not a good thing in that regard. But yes, you got to find other options and look for other solutions in terms of eggs, which are very cheap, and things that you can actually get good protein and good nutrition without having to go for this sort of stuff. There are other options out there. Sometimes fat trimmings. You can go to butchers and actually ask for cheap fat trimmings, so you can buy shitloads. Why use rice as glucose? Why not basically go and buy a whole lot of fat trimmings, which are just as cheap? And you'll get a lot of nutrition out of that with a lot of the fat-soluble vitamins as well. So that's a better option, I think. But I don't know what your food environment is around, whether you're in a food desert. That can be a problem. There's a lot of things that a lot of people have to put up with, unfortunately, and you may have to go further afield to try and access some of this sort of stuff. I hope that helps in that regard. One other thing, there are some organizations online that you can actually order bulk. So if you've got a number of family members and people, you could try and actually get a bulk order of a number of items. So it makes it easy if you're in a food desert. That's another option. I can't think of anything else. If I do, I will mention it in future, or I might even put a comment. Are bitch tits, man boobs reversible, or can they be fixed only with surgery? Look, some of it can be fixed with surgery. That is the usual thing. But at the same thing, you basically have to reduce some of the things that are driving it. So I'll probably make a video. I'll make a video of it, actually, because you've got estrogen, you've got stuff like that. And remember, you can actually bring... Remember I talked about boron and stuff like that, and to reduce it, and certain other things that actually help. Yeah, I'll actually do a video on it at some stage in that regard, with a bit of with some sort of protocol. I will be doing. There's a whole lot of videos that are going to come up. I have mentioned them on the chat that I did with Pim. I don't want to mention it here at this stage because I don't want to take away from her. Sort of, I want it to be mentioned there first rather than here, because, yeah. But what I've done with her on addictions and stuff like that, there's going to be like follow-on stuff that are going to come out of that on my own channel next month, is what I'm trying to say. And some of these other sort of issues that we sort of go on about, this sort of esoteric type stuff, is what I'll be sort of looking at, focusing on at at a later date in that regard. So, I mean, the thing, with man boobs, it's a complicated thing. I think I've spoken about this before with the endocrine system of men. There's, it's not only your diet. Look, excess weight, chest, fat. You may not have basically man boobs, but you actually may have what is called excess fat on your chest. Some men will accumulate more excess fat. So when they lose weight, they basically, end up losing the man boobs as well. That's one case. So you don't need surgery at all. Then there is a thing, the sort of endocrine system, which could be, and that could be from things like xenoestrogens, phytoestrogens. I don't think you're actually consuming any phytoestrogens anymore, like grains and stuff like that. Hope not. But xenoestrogens may be a problem. Bottled water. What else? Mold, bottled water, furniture that may have certain things that it can be xenotoxic to the body. That means increasing the estrogen. There could be things that it could be suppressing your testosterone as well. There could be a lot of things. I've talked a bit about some of this sort of stuff. I mean, L-Reuteri as a supplement helps. Choline, which I've mentioned, I think on my second live stream, I actually mentioned choline that can actually methylate away excess estrogen. There are other supplements like DIM, which come from cruciferous vegetables, which is a sort of an extract which can also help. And what was the other one? There's stinging nettle and the palmetto or something like that along those lines. But yeah, there's a couple of things that could be driving that sort of stuff. It's hormonal in some cases, or it's just the body fat in some people. It overexpresses in the actual, like people have different body types. Men, we think that women only have body type things. Everybody sort of goes, oh yeah, there's an hourglass woman, or, they have these different body types. Well, men do as well. It's something that men aren't aware of. And so maybe you have a body type that actually puts more excess fat on the, you even see it with some old bodybuilders that never used any of this sort of stuff, that basically had more sort of more tissue there than other men, even though they were doing very similar exercise or eating similar foods and all that. So there are genetic things there as well. It's really hard to work these things out. They're really a bastard thing to try and work out what is actually driving it for you. Sometimes, you may eliminate all the stuff in your diet, and then you may have mold in your home. You may be eating, there may be things, xenoestrogens in some sort of things in your environment that you're not aware of. There's also, the food that you may be getting. You may think you're getting a certain type, I actually said to somebody to change where they were getting their meats and certain foods, animal foods, and they did, and they noticed a change in, their hormones and a number of things. So that's another possibility. Your supplier, where you're getting the stuff could be an issue as well. There are so many possibilities that it's really hard to say that what is potentially causing it. I would avoid going under the knife personally, if I was you, and look at some of these other ways. There are also I've noticed some bodybuilders, they've got some exercise training methods to reduce man boobs. That means that to basically exercise parts of this upper body part to reduce the fat in those areas, those deposited areas. And you can actually Google and you'll actually find some of those videos. So that's another option. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other things at the moment in that regard. But I will do a video on this sort of stuff. I did notice you did actually send, and I actually forgot to reply, like a lot of other things. I've been neglecting my emails, trying to put out content lately, and I know it may annoy some people, but as I said, this is a hobby. It's not a full-time job. I've got a full-time job, and it's sometimes really hard to find the time to basically do this sort of stuff. I'm trying to grow my channel at the same time and trying to create the videos to explain all these issues, so you don't have to email me. You just go to the videos, and if you want consultancies, as I said, go to Bart or Pim, because they do consultancies, and when it's addictions and stuff like that, and some of the stuff that I'll be discussing about addictions and all that, there'll be some protocol information, all that. But a lot of the stuff I've already chatted. I've chatted with others like Pim and Bart, and in that regard, I'll be passing a lot of my information to them, help them along as well, as you do, because they've helped me in the past as well quite a bit. So what comes around goes around, as they say. Get your butt over to Discord, so I can be trolled by these characters and this one. It's on my look. I have made a couple of silent appearances, just monitoring without getting involved. Just to see what people are talking about. Basically spying on yous. As simple as that. I've been spying on yous. Fuck yous, somebody has to spy on you. If it's, it's Harry. Rather than being big brother, it's Harry brother. That's basically spying on you. Benevolent Harry. There you go. God, I'm going to get mileage out of this one now that I've admitted it. I suspect they have, and they won't admit. Yes, he's getting himself all energized and getting all those nutrients and all that. Hope he's not creatine loading too quickly, because that can be a bit constipating with some people. Not everyone, but with some people can be. So, oh well, shit happens. Can you do what you can do? Well, the reason is that basically the SARS-2 is more, it actually survives in a number of different places. What happens is when another virus appears, it actually can displace others. That means it can become more prominent. It can dominate an organism far more. It's a bit like, some bacteria can dominate and push others into the periphery. Same thing. So, it's not a surprising thing. So don't, if basically there's not much COVID, you can expect flu to come back with a vengeance next year in that regard, unless COVID's still around. And also the flu actually requires a lot of interaction of humans. That means COVID is much easier. It's easier to spread. That's why they're all crazy about, hand sanitizers and all the masks and all that, because it's much easier to spread than the flu. Way more easier. That's the problem. But if it was a true lethal pandemic type virus, yes, I can understand. It was 1918. Yep, more than justified to basically take these measures, but it wasn't, and they knew it in the early stages. But whether it was for political reasons, they didn't want to basically backtrack or lose face or whatever, other forces saw an opportunity to manipulate and use this thing. And that's where the problem comes from, the political dimension. We're not talking about the viral dimension or the disease side of things. We're talking about the political dimensions of the other stuff that is the problems that we're arguing against, me and Bart in particular, and many others as well. But with so many people social distancing to a large extent, it's very hard for the flu to get around. The flu really requires people to be in close proximity to each other, to basically to sneeze on each other, kiss each other, shake their hands and all that. When you don't do a lot of these sort of things, it's very hard for the flu to get around. But for COVID, for SARS-2, it's much easier because it can be picked up from surfaces, from all sorts of stuff. It basically has a number of additional transmission pathways. That is why it's a more successful virus. You know, it's like bacteria, viruses. Some of them are more successful than others and dominate their environment more than others. That's all it is, you know. So that's the sort of scientific explanation for that side. The political one is a different one altogether. The response and other stuff like that, which is what we're arguing about. G'day, Harold. Good to see you, mate. You must have got a late announcement or whatever. And we will cruise through the comments really quickly. Both SARS ruins a lot of lives via the long haul effect. Many affected will never get their functions back. Big chunks of ones affected in early spring, Northern Hemisphere. Yeah, exactly. Get your D up. That's basically it. What I've been saying for a while. You know, this is it will cause much with people with comorbidities compared to the flu. It will actually cause more lung damage. That's true. And what regulates and prevents this damage from happening is vitamin D, you know. But also, even the flu can actually cause some damage to the actual lung, but much less than this one. But the problem is there's an easy solution. It's fucking vitamin D, you know. That's why it's a seasonal thing. That is why it's more, while it spreads, it can spread all year round. It only is lethal when vitamin D levels are lower, or in populations also that have got much lower zinc intake. And we know what that means. They're eating more kibble and not enough meat. So it's these sort of issues. But these issues are not discussed at all because they're not very fashionable in today's Discord. That's the problem. Thanks, Fluffy. What about funny remarks? That was a funny remark. What was? I always make funny remarks. What are you saying? That I only make occasional ones? When it comes to you two boys, I always make funny remarks. or excessive ones. Good to see you, mate. Neff, good to see you always. Is he a boomer? Are you sure of that? Or are you just calling him that? I found a recipe for yogurt where they used half and half to make it extra fatty, but they added inulin, okay, to feed the elderberry, then fermented it for 36. Do you think that is a good idea? I actually prefer kefir, and the reason for it is that there's as long as you can get real kefir. The biggest problem is, as you will find out, certain bacterial strains that are in yogurt, in commercial or yogurts around the world nowadays, they sort of can have some negative issues with the actual. You'll have to see the video that I've done with Pim. I'm not going to give too much away, but has an effect on weight and stuff like that. So, you know, real yogurt made from raw milk and all that, not an issue. It's all the sort of stuff, the supermarket stuff, and some of the strains that they put in there, or dominant strains which they put into the yogurts, which is the problem. So that should be out soon this week. Pim has mentioned it. Actually, I did notice earlier. Did I actually see something? Let me just see. Okay. She's got a message. Pim just sent me through. Okay. Wednesday morning, guys. So Pim's just told me that Wednesday morning that will be on her side. So the one that we did together. So you'll have to wait until Wednesday. It's only a couple of days away, and you will hear all about it. So I hope you enjoy it. We had a bit of a well over an hour sort of chat about a lot of these things. Look, the reality is we only touched the surface on some of the stuff. We could have really gone into. I looked at the time and I realised that Pim was, because it's late there. It was later in the afternoon, and I'm going, better sort of wind it up a bit. We can always do something in the future. Yep. Yeah, people use it, because it's, like rather than actually using, regular fiber, they use it because they think that, well, they're going to get the same, the bacteria have got something to feed off in there. So, and it's in a dried form, which can actually sprinkle into it and all that. Can't stick leafy greens in there, can you? Yes, happy birthday, mate. Frogs bearing gifts, that's a concern. I've just done it with kefir, so I've never sort of done it with yogurts and stuff like that. So I can't say that I've got skills in that area. So if it, give it a try. If it works, fine. Yeah, I don't know enough about yogurts in that regard. Maybe watery type yogurts that would work better, because there are sort of like watery type yogurts, but then again, a lot of them have sugars in them. So, but then again, yeah, don't know. Be honest, I just don't know enough about those sort of food preparations. What a shocker. I love it. I do watch Harry's. How did you know? Nice one, mate. Nice one. The boron there. No place for apples. the ice cream. I love the touch. The steak and the milk and the ice cream. Perfect combination. Very anabolic. What's wrong with you? Thanks, Lukey. That's a nice one. That is a shocker. Yeah, wish I had a body like that. I'd have to go quite a few decades back when I was a much younger person. Yes, you could see my rib cage. I was, just muscle. There was probably very little fat on me, down to a couple of percentages. years. At some point, I'm going to motivate myself to go back into that direction. I do some weights, but I don't really do a lot of weightlifting like I used to. So I try and do some of the small amounts in that regard, sort of just general, the 6 or 7 type compounds now and then. But I don't do a lot, I'll be honest, I'm quite lazy on that front. Sort of have to motivate myself. It's the fat, yeah, the fat. Basically, it's like the camels. They hydrate primarily with low deuterium water, which comes from the cactus, or they basically from their own fat stores. So when you eat no carbs and you eat fat, your requirement for hydration goes down. You lose that urge to drink. Usually when people tell me they are very thirsty, when I hardly drink, and when they're constantly either hungry or thirsty or urinating like mad, I usually say there's an issue there, a blood sugar issue or an insulin issue, stuff like that. You should be basically, your mood and everything should be stable, quite boringly stable in that regard, and you should be getting your hydration primarily from fat. So mine primarily comes from dairy. I use a lot of creams and stuff like that, and I don't use much tallow. It's more lard that I use. So it's more butter, lard, and ghee, which is my key ones. I have bought tallow in the past, and it's usually if I get some from the butcher's, fine, but I'm not a big tallow person. I prefer lard, much nicer, and I prefer butter and ghee far more. So, but that's me, and that's how I hydrate myself. And so water's down to a minimum, and usually when I'm putting water, it's usually basically if I've sweated quite a bit, and I'll put a bit of salt, and then I'll just drink it, and that's basically it. But I won't have massive amounts. I won't be sitting there guzzling down liters and liters of water. No, in that regard. I mean, it's different when you've got a protocol where you're using metabolic water to flush out deuterium-loaded water in your system. That's a different thing, completely different. But when you don't have that problem, you should be primarily hydrating with fat. And that is the best source of hydration you can actually have. Now, obviously, the weather of the year will play a role, but that's okay, because if you're in summer and you're basically dehydrating slightly from the sun, then you will consume more water. But that's okay, because the extra UV is basically depleting deuterium. That extra light source, it will deplete, especially if you get out in the early hours of the morning, that near infrared light. And I've actually got red lights in this place anyway, in my bedroom, toilet and all that. And that light also helps in terms of, that supporting those pathways. So, yeah, I don't need the sort of level, I constantly see people just guzzling down water and water and water. It's 155 parts per million. If you're doing it in winter, you're putting a lot of deuterium in there, and you're putting a deuterium overload into your body, and depending on how healthy your mitochondria is, how they can cope in basically clearing it out or not, can vary between people because of their mitochondrial health. But the more deuterium you put in, the more damaging to more nanomotors you will do, and you will reduce the capacity of your body to generate energy over time. So it's years. So if I know my body's going to be basically, it's in summer, I do consume more water. That's true. You can only get so much from fat, and it's hard to eat a lot of fat. But that's fine. If I'm in the tropics, I consume more water with a bit of salt and stuff like that to maintain my electrolytes, and pretty much don't really worry, because I know I'm out in the sun for a couple of hours and basically depleting So it's less of an issue. It's only an issue when you're in a colder climate and all that. And I go, you're not dehydrating. Why are you basically? And if you actually have low deuterium foods, which we're calling fat, that fat will basically provide hydration to the cells, which is low deuterium hydration, which basically means that the body doesn't need to take as much in. And what will happen is your antidiuretic hormones will upregulate. So you don't lose as much and you're less thirsty and stuff like that. The problem is most people are so dysregulated that they have all these issues and all that, and can have hydration issues and stuff like that. Hope that sort of explained it. Yes. Fancy seeing us all here. That's true, Shell. Where have you been? We got plenty of fans here. Shit, yeah, basically. That's one way of saying it. I get beef fat trimmings free and bones with marrow. Love my butcher. Yes. Oh, look, if you've got a good relationship with your butcher, yes. Sometimes, you know, if you buy a number of things, like you go to a butcher and buy the steaks, you buy, you know, some of your organ meats and stuff like that, they will throw some of this stuff in for free, because it usually ends up in the dumpster anyway because nobody buys it. Shell, he's not that sort of a bird. I mean, that looks like, what is it, an eagle or a bird, or, you know, some real bird with balls. You know, he's not that sort of a bird, you know. Should have put a chicken there for him. Yes, and the mousing around. Trying to keep T1 under control. It's a failure. The nurse gave up a long time ago. You're welcome. Yeah, I'll go into more details in that video. I mean, the stuff that came is just off the top of my head, things that I've said before in live streams and all that, but I need to basically properly put it all in. And that will be in the new year, some of that stuff. That's one of them. There's a couple of others in terms of things that you can do for a whole lot of other things, ailments and all that. So they will be in January around there. So I've sort of focused on some of these other parts. It's just a matter of going. I've got a long damn list here. If you saw my list, it's just massive, you know, the amount of things that I want to do. So it's going to take quite a while to cover all these things. But it will happen. In the next couple of months, we will get through some of this stuff. And I'm doing them in this sort of, I know it seems ad hoc to some people, but it's the only way I can do it. I mean, I know somebody actually, was it Alex? I think Alex said to me, oh, you know, you sort of don't have your normal typical spunk. You know, it sort of seems a bit, but you know what? As I pointed out to Alex, I'm doing this late at night. I'm back from work. I'm tired. You know, later in the evening also, your melatonin is much higher because of blue blocking glasses and all this and keeping the blue light out. So you actually push up your melatonin. When you actually have an increase in melatonin, what happens? You're actually more sleepier. You're actually not as energetic, and you don't come across as energetic and, you know, all this sort of stuff. It's just simple as that, or really talking fast like I normally talk when I'm on my live streams. I can't do that because I'm tired. I've had a long day's work, and then I've had, you know, my other domestics and whatever else. You know, I might have dropped in to see how Dad is and help him out with something or whatever. By the time I do this, I'm doing it about, you know, 10:30 or, you know, or 11 o'clock. And I do a half hour quickly, do something, and then basically post it. And it appears the next morning or just a bit after, like at midnight or close to it. This one last night was just before I went to bed. I sort of got on there because I did a premiere. I just chatted with a few people there, and that was it. And then I just went to bloody bed because I was tired, and that's how it goes. So it's not easy to cover everything and doing, especially when it's not your regular job. YouTube is not my regular job. It's just, that's why I can't do consultancies. I don't have enough time. I can't do a lot of things. I'd love to, I'd love to have the freedom to be able to do more things, but I've got other commitments and they do come first. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is. That's how life is. But at the same time, I will try and cover a lot of these issues, because the problem is everybody else just regurgitates the same stuff. If you've noticed on YouTube, they're selling product. So they have to do the same sort of stuff on this subject, on that subject, or whatever. And it's just the same sort of stuff. Now, why is that playing up? Damn hard drive. So people are just regurgitating things continuously, and it's just the same stuff, oh, it's fiber, or it's this or that. They just basically another angle on that. I'm not interested in that shit. I basically want to do on real problems that people have, or real issues, or things that are basically have happened historically over a couple of decades to our food supply, to our bodies. What the stuff that I'm talking with Pim is really in relation to a lot of that. You guys will understand and go, oh, these are the sort of things that they've been doing to us. And you'll have a better appreciation of what's been happening to the food supply, to all these sort of things. And I think you'll find it very interesting, the video the chat that I've done with Pim. So do go and watch it. There's a lot of stuff you'll get out of it. And these are the sort of stuff I do. You know me, you've known me for a long time. I go down multiple rabbit holes trying to find out and understand things much deeper, and then present them to you guys in a nuanced way, in a way that you've never heard them before. I'm not interested in regurgitating the same bullshit that everybody else does. It's a waste of time, waste of energy. If I'm going to waste my energy, I'm going to waste it on things that are worthwhile wasting. That basically stuff that nobody else has done or followed, or dealt with. So it's going to be on issues and in a way where people have not viewed it, so before, because there's other things that people didn't take into account. Anyway, I will move on. After you can get a good bulk or whatever. Yes, it is. It is. There's a lot of issues, and there's a lot of genetics. There's a lot of, it's not a straightforward thing as well. And it's environmental as well. There's too many things that can actually cause the issue. Look for another butcher. Yep, exactly. That's it. Annoying. It makes rewards and all that. Actually, tissue fat. There's something that comes up in one of my conversations with Pim, and I will be making a video on that as well, on tissue fat. So you will hear about it, and then I will do a specific video. So there's a lot of stuff people just don't know about. So yes. So I'm into the cutting edge stuff in things, quirky things here and there that nobody talks about. And look, working certain muscle groups in a certain way and all that can help as well to reduce fat in those locations and to increase muscle. That's true. You can play with them. Did I say that? Oh, God. I know my mate's going to go, I can't believe you said that. There you go. You got an admirer. Oh, no, sexy. God damn. do, do, do. Do, 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 do. You're welcome. Ah, yes. Yeah, I've got more meat that you can poke a stick at. Got enough meat to feed myself for half a year very easily if I had to literally lock myself away. Not that I plan to, but you know what I mean. My focus was to get as much meat in my fridge. That's the other thing I do. I've got a few steaks that I'm actually fermenting at the moment as high meat, fermentable stuff. So yes, I do those sort of things. It's all cured with, but it's left in there to ferment a bit. Yes. I'm less concerned about histamines like everybody else is. I touch on that subject as well with Pim, but I'll be doing something specifically for that in the long run as well. You'll be surprised. You'll have a different appreciation of histamines in the future once you see that video. Anyway, I heard your chat over goat meat. Is there a different benefit to beef or lamb? Goat meat, the amino acid profile and the fatty acid profile tend to be quite good, but in particular their dairy products more than their meat. The only thing difference between goat meat and lamb and beef meat is that they've got much lower PUFA, but that's not an issue anyway. I don't really care about that part. But it's more you could say the fatty acid profile. One big benefit, I think, in goat meat is because it usually comes from a mountainous area, and it has nothing to do with the fatty acid profile or the amino acid profile, but actually with the mineral content, and also a number of other substances in there. So that's where the benefit is. They do eat hardy plants in mountainous areas, and some of these plants do tend to take up more minerals. So as a meat, they tend to have higher levels as long as they come from a rocky island, like in the Aegean, or they come from a mountainous area. We're not talking about the ones that are lowland, just on normal pasture like beef and lamb. Not those. They have to come from a mountainous area, the origins, or from a rocky island where the type of vegetation uptakes quite a lot of minerals, because they tend to really suck up the minerals, these sort of things, because they're literally competing with other plants around them in a very desolate environment. So they have to take up as much. That's why they've got that greener stuff. Plus, they tend to have higher levels of omega-3s, and also, in terms of this fat soluble vitamins, like even vitamin D and stuff like that, is really important in this sort of in the tissue of these animals. So that's where you probably get a bigger advantage with goat meat, but it has to be from rocky islands or highlands type environment. So just to make that clear, but you can get the same thing like lamb that comes from like the Central Highlands in Tasmania, which is a plateau, which is a higher elevation and has these hardy type plants, very similar to ones you find in Iceland. Again, the meat has higher omega-3s, higher vitamin D and other things in there, and minerals, so it has more nutrition. So that's the way I sort of view it. So I'm always keen about the sources of my meat, not only the type of meats, but also sources. So I'm lucky in that regard in Tasmania, and people in New Zealand are pretty lucky that they can access those sort of things in that regard. So, I mean, we can just bloody get a lot of different sort of stuff. It's not too difficult in that to get this sort of stuff down here, where in other places there's food deserts. very hard to find things. You know, it's just simple as that. It's really hard to find things. Where here, the amount of pastured eggs is Tasmania. You got Burnie. You got the over in some of the islands. You got in the south. There's so much pastured sort of. You know, I buy different eggs because sometimes the biggest problem with the pasture type supply, it varies. You know, sometimes that, you know, I go to the IGA store and they've got more of this one or that one or whatever, and I'm never getting the same brand. Sometimes I'm getting from Burnie or from the south or whatever. I used to have a more consistent, they used to have a bit of a more consistent, but they seem to be, because they're getting multiple supplies, they vary in between stores, and I'm not going to chase around for stores. The ones that I got recently, is a new brand. I haven't tried it. I'll just show you quickly. Oops. Yeah, so that's basically 450 hens out there in an outdoor sort of pasture that they've got. So it's a small sort of family farm, you know, they're out there. So that's the sort of stuff. But with pastured stuff, it varies. You know, sometimes one family farm will have more. That's why, you know, I mean, what do you think the cage stuff and all that is cheaper? It's not accidental. It's cheaper because basically it's more available. It's, you know, consistent in that regard. That's the only reason. Now, remember that old geezer that was consuming 25 eggs a day for multiple generations, outlived everyone and all that in his family and all that? He was just eating just general supermarket eggs. They weren't pastured or anything special. So just keep that in mind, you know. The difference is why I buy that is there is the ethical side, and I want to support these type of farm activities. And the other angle is that I'm going to get some more benefits out of it. But does it, you know, when you're talking about price to benefit, is it that big? Probably not. It's more me ethically wanting to support this type of activity. So, but if people can't afford it, I can understand. I don't begrudge people that have to get some sort of nutrition into their family, good nutrition, animal nutrition. Just because I can afford that, others can't. You know, simple as that. Yep, that's it. Get the vitamin D up. Especially you guys, now that we're going into summer, you guys are going into winter, and you probably noticed I've been staying out. Like yesterday, I was out for about 5 hours. Four. So I was walking around for about 3.5 hours, and then I was about at my mate's place because we only ate for about, and I was out walking around. We were all barbecuing, then probably came in and ate for about 30 minutes or whatever. So it was probably about. Then I walked home and I walked back, and because I forgot my sunnies, and yeah, you know, when you've had a good time, you forget a lot of things. And I probably was out in the sun for about anywhere 4+ hours. So I've got a bit of color in that regard. Without any sunscreen or anything like that, I don't put any of that shit on. I don't take seed oil, so I don't have seed oil deposits in my skin to burn. But, you know, so I get plenty of vitamin D. But you guys are going now into winter, you know, into the wintry months. You're already in basically now in the northern hemisphere. So yeah, you really have to, especially because, the sort of virus that's going around, because if you get it, it's going to cause you far more harm to your, you just want to get it light and get rid of it, be done with it. You don't want to basically damage your lungs and have to recover over a certain length of period. And it's the same thing every year. I mean, I go to the tropics and basically increase my vitamin D. But this year, as I said, I had to get supplements. I had no option because I couldn't access the tropics to lift my levels. So, and I get out in the sun far more now than I used to. I used to supplement far more in the past, and I was pasty white and all that. So, and, does it cause some photo aging? Yeah, it probably does. I'm not saying that it doesn't. Do I care? Not really. I'm 54 years old. I better get over sort of the aging issue. So I enjoy the sun. So apparently, who changed the requirements to call something a pandemic? Yeah, look. Yes, they did. They did a lot of things like the bullshit that they, like the food, calling meat a carcinogen or stuff like that. They did a lot. The problem is who has been riddled by environmentalists and also a whole lot of vegans and vegetarians that have got themselves into these organizations and are peddling their misanthropic sort of pseudo-science agendas. Because there are people on some of these panels and they're saying, well, they're not looking at proper science. They're looking at a whole lot of epidemiology, which is highly confounded. And they will not look at real science. And they're bullshitting and lying. But because they're on the committee, they have to say it privately that this is what's happening. And we know because when you actually say, where's the studies? And when they've published some of the studies, we know they're all epidemiological. So we know that it's all crap, And why are they ignoring all the other good clinical studies and randomized control studies and trials? Why? Because it doesn't suit their narrative. Simple as that. There's dodgy as dog shit on all this sort of stuff. And it's the same sort of the politicization of this because there are other agendas at play, unfortunately. And they don't care about people. If they really cared about these old people, they would have given them all. Once we knew there's studies now, plenty of studies. I told you about the recent ones, plenty of studies that actually show vitamin D, and people are talking about it continuously. There's a lot of people out there trying to push vitamin D. Do you hear much of it in the media? No. Do you hear much of it from politicians? No. Do you hear much of it from the experts? No. So if they really cared about people, why would a bit of vitamin D cause any problems to anyone? It's because who cares about people dying? Is it really them? Yes, exactly. Yes, I don't expect anything better from you and the other two trolls. Fresh is best. Depends on what sort of fresh stuff. Plants can be fresh as well. They can be really bad for you. 105 days until we can next make vitamin D in the UK. Yes. Problem is also in some parts of the world, even in summer, you may get enough, but you may be, because a lot of people are indoors now. They don't get out long enough. Everybody avoids the sun. Everybody stays in, especially people that have got dark skin. Dark-skinned people, basically, the more darker your skin is, the longer you have to stay in. So if let's say your descendants is from Africa, you may have to stay out there for about 6 or 7 hours to get what somebody with a lighter skin will get in half an hour, 45 minutes. So, somebody can go out and have a long lunch who's lighter skinned and get all their vitamin D, and somebody who's dark who works in an office may not. And there will be, and it's probably one reason why, people with darker skins in the US or Canada or places like that, or parts of Europe, tend to have higher levels of certain diseases and stuff like that because of lower vitamin D levels and status. There's plenty of studies that show that. So those people probably do need to supplement, because it's not easy. If you're working in an office, you can't basically just walk out of the office and go and actually sunbake all day or walk around, or you have to change your job to an outdoor job, so, but it's not practical for everyone. So the only thing is a high quality supplement then comes into play. So yeah, it's just, shit happens. It's just the way it is. You moved out of or you were taken illegally as, or sold into slavery and moved out of your ancestral parts that you were adapted to. And, it's the unfortunate thing, or people that have immigrated from the subcontinent of India or other parts of the world. And those people will have to look at vitamin D. Very important for you guys. Don't neglect that. Very important for your health. But even in some of these countries, people are basically starting to do a lot of indoor work, like in Indonesia and other places that I visit, Malaysia in particular, Singapore, a number of these places, more people are doing indoor work, or they're living in the center of the city area where there's big skyscrapers and all that. So the amount of, let's say, even though they may be out for quite a few hours walking around, they're not getting enough vitamin D because they're walking between these buildings that are basically, just making them, they tend to be quite dark areas or whatever. You're probably getting New York as well. It's probably another reason why New York had such incidents, because of much lower vitamin D status, because of the way the buildings are, the area is built up quite a bit, and you don't get enough natural light and stuff like that. So there's probably a lot of those sort of issues as well that were driving that. But if people had been aware of this sort of stuff and were using vitamin D, we probably wouldn't have seen the death rate, and we wouldn't have had to close down our economies either. I've seen some of the US cities and some of the cities in Australia and elsewhere, and you look at them and you go, and even Tasmania was quite immune. We didn't get much here and all that, but still a number of businesses closed down. People that I knew that had businesses, and I walked past as I was going to work, and I looked at that and I go, fuck, those people have been there for how many years, and they had to close up. It's all over. And they were sort of my age or slightly older, and you go, fuck, how do you start from that? It was really heart-wrenching, especially when you know some of these people. Yeah, so it wasn't. So where my anger comes from with some of these issues. Yeah, look, a lamp is good as well. Yeah, you can get a UV lamp. Probably the lamp is that it doesn't have the same profile as the natural type, because you're not getting a lot of the other sort of, but it's the same thing with the supplements. You're not getting a lot of the other light type things, which are also important. UVA actually is quite protective, has a protective effect, because it penetrates deeper, and it can actually cause some low grade, sort of like a hormetic effect, which actually means that some of the actual repair mechanisms will upregulate and actually repair the tissue, the sort of collagen degrading enzymes, where something which is only UVB, and only UVB doesn't penetrate as deep and may not actually have that effect. There's a way around it. When you actually do this, take a niacin tablet, get a flush, which actually will cause the same effect as UVA to basically cause the tissue to basically heal. and it'll actually make it'll actually improve your redox potential as well for your mitochondria. So you get a double benefit. So that's the other thing you can do if you've got a lamp, just a bit of a hack in that regard. Anyway, let's move on. Lamps to rub it. Rub? You need a rub down? I'd love a rub down. I better stop before I say too much. You really fucking love them? Oh God. This one and the other two? Oh God. Yep, can be pricey. I'm not against them, but as I said, yeah, StreamYard just decided to basically push things just through now. Held off quite a long, and then it popped it in. Wonderful. Yeah, perfect. I thought I was close to the bottom. I'm not. Oh, shit. God, you guys have been putting shitloads of stuff in here. I'm going to cycle through them quickly. Oops. Just going through them as quickly as possible. More laughs from this crowd. And vitamin D therapy, UVB, blah, blah, blah. Yep. Discuss that. Yes. That's a simple answer to that. Yes. They're the protein part in particular. But also their fat. No, I don't think their fat can have. No. I think it's just the protein part tends to be higher. That's the only part. But it's not massive. It's not a massive amount. So I can't say I would be. There's other things that I actually would be concerned more with grain, and that would be the glyphosate part. And once you see the video that I've made with Pim, you'll realize why. So without giving too much away. Nothing like moisturizer. Yep. Tallow, cows and sheep. So what we call tallow is either cow or sheep or goat fat is what we call tallow. It has a different consistency. And what we call lard is pretty much pig's fat. Yep. And where tallow between those different animals is very similar in profile on a number of there are some variations, in particular with lamb, and in terms of the PUFA part, lamb and with goats in particular compared to cows. But generally speaking, the other fatty acids are not that too far out. Lard on the other, and also on the deuterium side, they're very similar, where lard is much lower on deuterium and tends to have far more omega-6s. But that's not an issue as far as I'm concerned. So, but that's me. But, if it's good for that old geezer, 17.5 grams of PUFA a day, mainly omega-6 without any problems, I don't think it's a problem for anyone else. Unless you're a crackpot and coming up with bullshit studies full of seed oils and trying to make a case. The difference is the PUFA in pigs is very low in deuterium. It's actually the lowest. It's the thing that actually lowers the deuterium is actually the PUFA. It's not the others, the other parts. It's actually the high PUFA content that actually lowers the deuterium. PUFA tends to have lower deuterium generally if it comes from an animal source. There you go, I've said it. Where when it comes to basically, that's why the others are slightly higher. That was going to be part of a future video, but anyway, I've said it now. Now you know why I love lard as a cooking. Anyway, Harry, what's your opinion on vitamin C? Unnecessary. You get more than enough, as long as you're not actually eating, things like honey and other things like that, and other carbohydrate type things. And there can be animal-based carbohydrates in very high amounts that can reduce the amount of vitamin C at the receptor. But generally speaking, carnivores don't have a problem. We get more than enough. And we also get hydroxyproline and other things like that, which is what vitamin C does from a lot of the meats that we eat. So we need less to be converted. And on the other hand, we have more intracellular antioxidants. So the small amount of vitamin C that we get and small amount of vitamin E we get, what it does is, because of upregulation of glutathione on a carnivore, keto, or low-carb diet compared to the others, when you have higher insulin, glutathione is in the toilet. When you're in a low-carbohydrate state, glutathione is elevated. When you have elevated glutathione, what does it do? Electron dones to vitamin C and vitamin E. It recycles them. It refreshes them. So you need less. It's like basically, thiamine, you need half the amount. It's like a lot of things, depending on what diet you're on, certain nutrients are required less. You require less magnesium. On a high carbohydrate diet, you require more magnesium. So all these things vary in that regard. So those are the sort of differences between what is happening and all that sort of stuff. That bloody door's starting to annoy me, rattling. Okay, stopped. And yeah, so don't worry about it. You're getting more than enough. If you're basically cheating a lot, then you could be causing yourself some problems. And one other thing that I did forget, not only cheating, but also if you're eating a lot of like beef jerkies and stuff like that, and not real food, they are devoid of vitamin C. So there you can actually induce a deficiency over time. It does take time, but you can induce one. So don't forget to eat some fresh meat. And if you want to increase your vitamin C even more, raw milk or some raw meats. Anyway, that's another reason why I have cured raw meats. Not that I need the quantity anyway. My see on the keyboard doesn't work properly. The chicken. Not even a rooster in sight. David Cleffield, I think it was. He was one of the scientists that was the ICAR group that claims that red meat caused cancer, and he pushed back. Okay. He was in the sort of the pushback. The name sounds familiar, but I can't really put a face to it or whatever. Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. And everyone else. I may actually look into him, and find out a bit more. Because sometimes when you look into some people, you find a bit more sort of background in that regard. Sleepier, like oh yes, me at night. Yeah. Yes. we must have the same issue. You should be banned for life. I'm running through them trying to get to the bottom before they start putting in more comments. Salad boy, you mean, talks full blown poo, such as rape. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just crap. Painful to watch nonsense crap. Steph is the same. She goes around in a pointless circle. Okay. Oh, look, I don't know enough about Steph. Occasionally I've watched a few things. I've seen her on Bart's thing. I don't know enough about her history. She looks pretty good. So she must be doing something right, but I don't know enough about what I don't have notifications from her. I've just subscribed. It's usually mine are limited to the people that I want to constantly watch. I think there were things with the stuff that where they'll talk with Carnival Yogi and all that, and I watch some of that and I go, there are other issues here that they're missing, and it sort of didn't impress me as much in that regard. Yes, I won't say any more because I still subscribe. I still support other carnivals, but what people find interesting in from them or whatever is up to them. Yes, you got another person there. Yeah, look, a lot of them, just you're welcome. A lot of them are just focused on the actual surface stuff. For me, I have to drill down and find out what the hell's going on. And sometimes when I drill down, I have found cases where I thought that something worked in a certain way, and then I realized I was completely and utterly fucking wrong. But if you don't drill down, you'll never know. You'll just basically think, oh yeah, it sounds plausible, whatever, and you go with that, or you'll go with a specific study. Oh, it looks, but then when you drill down a bit more, you realize, that isn't the case, So, and that's what a lot of these people don't do. I don't know, is it they're a time thing, that they don't have enough time, or they don't have an interest in those subject matters. I have no idea what drives or motivates them. I mean, I've got a full-time job, family life and everything else, but I'm also a workaholic. So basically, it's just by nature to be able to. I used to basically, when I was a youngster, I could basically read like 7 books in a week. So I'm a strange person in that regard. Even though many people think that I was a bookworm, I wasn't. When I was a youngster, I hated books. I hated school. I wasn't really into that. I was into basically out there, whether it was going hunting as a youngster, or doing other things like that. I mean, I've told you the stories about me going slaughtering animals with Dad, or whether basically going out there and cycling around with my bicycle, or having dogs and stuff like that, and animals. I had a German Shepherd, a sheepdog, but one of those sheepdogs that was a cross between a collie type, which has long hair type thing. Anyway, so I used to, be into that sort of stuff, and I was very practical with my hands. I mean, even though I'm not a Boilermaker welder like Dad, I still could weld my bicycle back together if I fucked it, because we used to jump off these. We used to put these ramps and just jump off them. Oh, we had a ball of a time. And I used to go up to my uncle's place, who had a motor mechanic, one of Dad's younger brothers, and I used to go there and actually, weld back. He goes, where the equipment is, go and do it yourself. So he wouldn't do it for me. So I used to weld my bike back together that I busted from coming down really hard. So that wasn't what I was, but then I changed neighborhoods and kids were smarter. and I had to basically, maybe it was ego, maybe I don't know. I was very competitive as a child, and I became very competitive at learning and being able to out-argue anyone, and that's what I became. So if I'm motivated, I can really learn things really fast when I'm motivated, I find. If I'm not motivated, I've got no interest, forget it. I just will switch off things. But if I'm really motivated, I just plow through like I'm, I'm on some sort of, it's just my nature. I'm probably part of the reasons to explain some of my addictive personality traits that I've had in the past with certain things. Luckily, they didn't really affect me in a negative way, or I didn't really, so I didn't have any interest, but I do have that sort of drive. And it's probably the reason why I'm able to go through mountains and mountains of information very fast and actually find things that are of value and things that are not. So that's probably the only way I can explain. My friends that know me that I'm basically have this sort of personality. They're pretty good with it, in that regard. But I tend to be a very deep thinker in the way I think about things, and not only nutrition, a lot of things. I tend to be a deep thinker in the way I see things. So but at the same time, I'm not a classical bookworm. I'm very practical with my hands as well. So I'm probably more like my ancestors, who basically believe that you have to be both. Let me put it that way. And the culture over there does actually push you in both directions. You're not a complete human being if you're not both mentally and physically. You're not trying to become the better type of yourself. That's what my ancestors believe. I believe that as well. They believed in excellence in both mind and body. And so that's what drove the world to where it is today, that sort of thinking. So without sort of being a cultural snob, but that's what really drove it. Some people will disagree with me. I don't give a shit. But yes, and to some extent, I've embraced it from a youngster for whatever reason. Don't know. How many do you lay? Do you sit on them? Do you lay any? Tell us more. I know the frog would be intrigued. Look, forget it. The most eggs that I will have in a day is about 12 eggs. The majority of times it's about 4 or 6 eggs. And sometimes I literally switch off for a couple of days and have no eggs. And then I'll have my choline supplement. But generally speaking, and that choline supplement, I don't know, I should check the date on it after. I don't even know if it's out of date now because I've had it for so long, because I have very little. And that's why I bought a small quantity, which was 250 grams, but still it takes a very long time to get through because I have the eggs. It's only on the non-egg days that I take it. So to support that other pathway of methylation that I've got an issue with. Yep. 3 farms, all 2 hours plus away. Yeah, look, it's if you can source things within your proximity, it's great. Some people are luckier than others. Sometimes I always say to people, there's always family in some other location which may be able to basically purchase it for you. You can electronically, give them the money, they can purchase for you and actually send it to you. They package it with ice or whatever, or may drive down. You may not have transport. They may drive down, packed in a sort of with ice type thing and bring it to you, So there's always options to look at. So always try to think outside the box. I'll tell you, I'll tell you one way I do like eggs. I don't mow them fried. or, you know, like scrambled and stuff like that. But the way I really like them is like having a really nice steak and then basically with like a New Yorker, which is salt and pepper on both sides, really packed, and then literally having basically like a poached egg, 1 or 2 poached eggs on top of the steak, just, you know, that sort of runny type, and oh, that's really nice. And just cutting into it and eating it with the salt and pepper and all that, making me hungry. Actually, right after this stream, I'll be having a bit of pork, cooking up a bit of pork. That is one thing, because I haven't had anything, just water. That's only a bit. So since the morning that I woke up, that's all the water I've actually consumed from the top there. Very little, as you can see. We're not into the very, very warm days yet. Look, it's different soils down here. If you go on the east coast, they're also the soils there tend to be a bit more sandy as well. So that is another factor. There's so many variations. Selenium levels can vary. So yeah, there's a lot of poor selenium levels in Tasmania in some areas. That's why I try and get my selenium from eggs and stuff like that, or organ meats where it gets concentrated. So you've got to know your environment as well that you're actually eating in. That's why, as I said, it's so going back to a sort of an ancestral approach where some of these elements is really important as well. I've actually spoken about on a number of occasions, ones with vitamin, with either MCT oil, palm oil, coconut oil, or extra virgin olive oil, one of those. So depending on what you can find, obviously the ones that are more saturated are much safer. You definitely don't want the seed oil type, like the, you know, sunflower, the canola oil stuff and all that. That's just seed oil crap. So extra virgin olive oil is somewhere in between. If you can get one with MCT or palm oil, coconut oil, stuff like that, they're far more safer. Unless, there's another proviso, unless you basically got a salicylate issue. If you have a salicylate issue, then try and focus on getting an MCT, because, you know, so you don't get a reaction to the salicylates. So that's the other part. That's all oils will have some sort of level of salicylate. So I don't know whether people have sensitivities or not. People vary. So, yips. Definitely not the seed oils. That's what we're talking about. It's not a question of PUFA based. Animal PUFA is not a problem. It's the vegetable PUFA that's gone through an industrial process and basically is quite rancid and high in aldehydes and stuff like that, which will rip your cell membranes. And that is why you don't want to be taking those ones. They tend to be the cheaper ones as well. Yep, I've already answered that. That's better than nothing. And I actually like to use the baby vitamin D liquid and rub. Depends on what oil it is and stuff like that. So check the information on it. And if it's not some egregious source, then continue doing it. Yeah, look, they're an option, which is basically the sort of similar to kefir and stuff like that. Yep, people have been doing that for a very long time, let's put it that way, since antiquity and beyond. Oh, God. Yes, yes. The carnal thoughts, the sick carnal thoughts. I can expect that from you. So I bet you're visiting your red light district, aren't you? He definitely would know. That it's not even a question. Would he know? He knows. He knows all the shady places. Yes. Mine are actually red light for to lower the level of blue light. I'm ashamed to admit that I tried Frankie Tufano's advice of rubbing it on my private regions. Well, good for you. Did you enjoy it? See, Frankie likes to do those sort of things, even on the web. He likes to rub all sorts of things down there. Anyway, let's move on. Did it now. I'll have to rub myself down there. Probably helps. Don't get me wrong. Probably does in that regard. But, I haven't seen a study. Frankie claims a lot of things. Definitely. Yeah. I've actually seen Peter's. Yeah, it is a good channel. Yeah, he is pretty good. Talks about regenerative farming and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, as well. And different approaches, stuff like that on some of the need for ruminant animals on vegetation, because the way they eat the grass, they allow it to sort of grow and continually, if you don't have, you basically get dead grass without animals eating it. So I've heard some of the stuff. He's really good. And that's somebody who understands environmental science properly, not some crackpot with that basically has an ideology to push. So I mean, this guy has sort of moved towards our sort of communities, the low carb, keto, and all these sort of communities, but that wasn't his key focus in the beginning. He was more basically in that industry, looking at those sort of factors as a proper scientist would do, and realized that the crackpots out there were really crackpots in the nonsense they were peddling. Were you now? It's probably because you weren't rubbing it on properly. Yeah, look, some people do. That's true. They do have some capacity in that to tolerate. That's tolerate. That it doesn't mean it's optimal, but tolerate, yes, that's true. There's also people that are deficient in choline, like the Han Chinese. They can tolerate very low levels of choline coming in from the diet, 76% of them, where most of the rest of the world are very small in percentage terms. So, yes, there are going to be variations. I've spoken about this before. Yep, that is true. But the majority of us can't and shouldn't, because it is contraindicated and unhealthy. Yes. You know what's going to happen, Mandy? They're going to hear Harry drills holes, and these two characters, well, there's a couple of others as well. They're going to go on a rampage of Harry drills holes. Yep. I won't hear the end of it. And a rabbit hole in particular, God, fuck, it'll be a hairy situation. In more ways than one, if you only knew. They're good for poking things. I'll go no further than that before I get into trouble. Lay those eggs, bird brain. What sort of fucking bird are you? Oh, that was nice. Thanks, Blinky. Oops. Rambling through. Look, exactly. I have to say, it's probably the only part of the egg that I will actually, because I don't want to induce a biotin deficiency, the only part of the egg that I will have raw as well. So this is one thing that I do. I will get like 2 yolks, beat them, just the yolks, I'll put away into a container the whites to be able to create some other thing, and combine it in some other thing, but like a soup type thing that I do as well. And I put some crustaceans in it, so I can actually, so remember the technique that I showed you, that I explained to you last time? You heat it, the crustaceans and all that, and then you basically put spoonfuls into the egg and slowly bring it up to the same temperature, and then you can combine it into the soup, and then it becomes like a negi type soup with certain crustaceans that you may put in there. You can throw in a few prawns as well, stuff like that, and make a soup, a seafood type soup with some egg in it as well. So that's one thing. But what I do I will beat them, and then I will put basically pepper and salt, and I'll make sure that the pepper's sort of fine. And I will put a bit of turmeric, even though, yes, I've talked about turmeric not being a good thing in large amounts because it is a chelator, of iron, and we don't want it unless you've got hemochromatosis. You don't want to be putting it in there. So, but I put a bit just for flavor. It actually, with the yolk, combines and gives a really nice flavor, but I don't put a lot because I don't want to put too much anti-nutrient in. I do it as a flavor thing, and I beat it together and I put it on a really nice warm steak. And so what happens is the heat from the steak actually, cooks it slightly here and there in a very, it's a sort of a rawy, half raw and all that, like a sort of a similar to a gravy thing, and it's a spicy type thing. Oh, really nice. Let me put it that way. So I do things like that, combinations, which become very tasty. Yes. Nothing like a poached egg. Oh, look, if you can get really safe pork, yeah, get it. It's great, believe me, in that regard. Hello. I've been told by repeat followers that phosphate causes cancer. Crap. Does many bad things in the body, and do deep drive into the free time. You and Bart are legends. Look, let me just put it this way. I'll just give you one thing about phosphate, which is really important anyway. They did actually a clinical study. I haven't actually had the time to do it. I actually want to do it in one stage. I actually tried to get to organize. I've got 2 things with Bart that are outstanding. One on vitamin C, which I found some research, and also on this issue. But we haven't got around doing it because he's not doing live streams now and stuff like that. So yeah, at some point I'll probably drag him in to do something like that, a chat specifically for that. I've just been doing stuff with, like as I said recently, with Pim. But there's an old clinical study, and we're talking about clinical studies here. Okay, they were intravenously putting stuff into people. Okay. So, because, when we're talking about phosphate, we're talking about phosphorus. Now, when they actually were removing 3 things only, phosphorus, salt, or protein, people losing both muscle mass and they were losing also bone density. What most of these crackpots will tell you, if you get a lot of, from animal products, you get a lot of phosphorus, you will basically reduce your bone density. You'll have calcium loss and stuff like that. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You could actually have lower calcium, and you know what? You won't lose any as long as you've got the other 3. That's how important they are. And that is a clinical study where you can actually infuse into a person, specific study stuff, and actually test and make sure when you withdraw those 3, you see the loss, but not with the others. So that must tell you how important those 3 are. And so why the rest is all crackpottery. Because that's all they talk about, shit. It's all epidemiological, all associational crap, and a whole lot of reductionist nonsense. They go down these reductionist pathways deliberately. It's a deliberate ploy, because everything, it's like, you will hear me if you go to the PIM thing that I talk about histamines. Again, people demonize histamines, but it's a matter of homeostasis. But I'll explain what happens if you don't get good homeostasis, or don't have enough, or you suppress it with drugs and all that. You will hear what I've said in that video when you hear it on Wednesday. I'm not saying it out now. So you'll understand that when you go in this reductionist model, you end up basically causing other problems. And that's what these fuckwits do. The idiots, they've got no idea about the human physiology. The human physiology is a complex, regulated system through transcription factors, and our genes interacting with the world around us. And when you get them out of whack and they don't operate all these things properly, then shit happens. But, if basically we've got people that have been on ancestral diets for multiple generations, not one generation, multiple generations, never had a problem on low sugar. Inuit never had sugar. The Maasai is a dairy and meat culture. It's not a high carbohydrate diet. So when you look at the ratios, because you're not siphoning off the cream, and so when you're looking at the milk quantity, see, they actually put more water in the factory, so more deuterium they put it actually in the milk, unless you're getting raw milk. But if you're getting the sort of regular stuff, it's basically they homogenize it, they to break down all the actual fats, so they actually are equally distributed, so it doesn't seem as watery. You see the watery component when you look at the light, when they've taken even more fat out and it's just really shit. It's watery. So, and then they put a whole lot of sugar in. They change the composition, and you basically, but when you're actually eating these sort of foods, you don't have these issues, and multiple generations of them. And our ancestors, when we look at the N15 isotope analysis, it doesn't bear out what they're actually peddling. Even the ApoE genes, very recently did those changes happen. I've discussed them on PIMS. Go and check. There's a video about the ApoE, and I discussed that issue quite thoroughly about how it works. Humans did not basically. I know a lot of people in the carnivore community. That was one thing that was brought up in the one that Bart was debating, and I forgot to bring it up. But a lot of people talk about, agriculture brought about this sort of change in the ApoE and stuff like that. That's bullshit. I've heard a lot of people in the low carb community, carnivore and all that, say that is the case. That is absolute rubbish. The ApoE 3.3 and the ApoE 2.2 preceded agriculture. Our brains shrank by 10%, not because of agriculture, but the lack of sufficiently fatter animals. The first part, about 200,000 years, we saw a change. The climate got a bit warmer. What happens when a body, an animal, it'll reduce its fat because it does, to thermoregulate, it doesn't need as much fat around. So immediately you've dropped a bit. So you've got less source of energy from an animal. So humans would have started accessing a few plants seasonally a bit more. And that's where the body had to protect itself and changed the resident time of the actual chylomicron. So chylomicron is what is bringing all the, not only nutrients, but also fats in. Goes through the thoracic duct. And then actually every 10 minutes from the gut, you get released chylomicrons into the system. But what happens is you've got remnant chylomicron. It goes, the chylomicrons will go around, they get signaling, they go to the adipose tissue, they drop a bit of fat at the fat cells. Yes, they do. They're another pseudo crap that a lot of the low carb people say, oh no, it doesn't happen at all. No, that's bullshit. But eventually the body will take that out again and put it, can take it out as free fatty acid, will get released and actually use it as energy anyway. Because if there's not the sort of, it needs more energy at night and different parts of the day, it will access it. So that's not an issue. But in terms of what is called the flux of energy, you need the adipose tissue. That's the reason why we have bigger adipose tissue than the chimps and others. Why? Because we eat fattier food. So we store it temporarily there so it's not in our bloodstream. That's what the chylomicrons do. They put it there. You want more chylomicrons. You don't want as much VLDL. You don't want as much fat being exported out of the liver as triglycerides. Okay, that's what goes down. The other thing, chylomicrons go up, and they actually work with the fat cells and with leptin and insulin, all these sort of factors in terms of regulating the actual movement and transiting times of fats and all that. It's a complex thing, which is highly regulated by genes and enzymatic processes. Anyway, I've gone a bit too far down the track of what I'm trying to say. But the actual body knows what it's doing. These crackpots have no idea. But back about 200,000 years, we had that shift. And then at 80,000 years, when the climate even got warmer, which made it possible for eventually to get into agriculture, there was a shift to the ApoE22. That never took hold because humans didn't expose themselves to too many carbs until the 20th and until the very recent period in our history. So as the animals, the land animals became leaner, we had to access more other sources of foods. We're opportunists, so we accessed. They weren't the most efficient, they weren't the most optimal, but you know what? They supplemented until we got into agriculture, where we were able to basically produce surpluses and all that, and the rest is history. But our brain started to shrink much earlier. So probably about 100,000 years, a bit longer, a bit further back from Cro-Magnon man, as that into what is called the modern Homo sapien sapien, which has 10% smaller brain mass because of that change in the energy environment availability that existed. Because remember, these tribes exploded globally and basically started getting to all nooks and crannies on the globe. But we had others, Denisovans, Neanderthals, and others to compete with. We had competed them, and basically we're here, they're not. Simple as that. But at the same time, there was less energy. That is why a number of pastoral people switched to dairy products. They had no option. They had to get energy from somewhere. You know, you don't have a supermarket. You're out there. You got to find other ways. You know, you see a cow drinking a cow, and you go, well, or usually it was horses, wild horses, and you go, we could use that as well. And especially high horses have got actually far more energy density in the food. You can actually support 2.5 children compared to a child that is not lactose persistent. That's what gave the Indo-Europeans a big advantage, and they were able to conquer so many because they could build bigger standing armies, and they didn't have people, smaller standing armies and agriculturalists that had to work the land, about 80 odd to 90% of the people working, and had very small standing armies. The Indo-Europeans were both soldiers and pastoralists. That's why they conquered the shit. They exploded from the steppes, and they conquered Western China, the whole of Europe, subcontinent, all these other areas, So there are reasons for a lot of these sort of things why they happen. I know I've gone in a tangent because I usually do, but the reality is these people have got no idea that it's reductionist nonsense. And it's basically just because cancers use certain things, well, they use glutamate as well. But is glutamate bad? No. It's an important part as an amino acid for connective tissue. But once cancer gets going, you will use anything and everything. So the question isn't, they cannot show any causal study. I've actually challenged them. I've actually gone on to, what's his name? Robbie and that other guy, that Blinkov or whatever, fucking that Russian Georgie wanker. And basically I've, you put questions, and I've even dragged Bart over because I thought they wouldn't know Bart, and said, you go for them because I've been talking to Bart. And he tried to, and they wouldn't basically debate him. They wouldn't actually even chat with him, let alone debate. They're soft cocks. They have got no idea. Believe me, I'll give you another one. Chris Walker is another one that's a Ray Pete light. With another Ray Pete fan, you know what he actually said once? That when bears come out of hibernation, they are in basically a pre-diabetic or diabetic state, and they go and eat sugar, and they normalize those diabetes. That's what he actually said. You can actually find his video on his Chris Walker site. But you know what? That's bullshit. They don't do that because it's spring. There is nothing growing in the wilderness. There's nothing, absolutely zero. You have to wait until the fall and the later part of summer before you have fruit and all that sort of available. That's when they fatten up, before the winter months, the bears. No, they're out there waiting for the salmon to come up. That's what they're eating. This is a sort of nonsense and bullshit these people do. They've got no idea what they're talking about. When you challenge them and say, show me a study which shows causation, which proves a pathway of causality, they've got nothing. And that's why they're a joke. How they've been able to manipulate and trick is because of reductionist nonsense. They sound sciencey, but they're using reductionism. I can show you every pathway, too much of anything or too much of this or that, where anything can actually cause everything. Every amino acid, every fatty acid, every vitamin or mineral, that I can find you things that actually can show overload a system that can't handle it and basically creates some sort of condition. But that is nonsense. You've got to see that. I hope you do, and understand that. Because a lot of people are being deceived. Even Salad Boy, he sort of talks to these people, and I think they have affected his thinking to a large extent, unfortunately. I hope you find some interest in the stuff that I'm doing. I haven't seen you around really, and I hope you enjoy some of the content. Check out my site. It's got plenty of stuff. If you like the stuff, please like. If you want to subscribe, if you haven't, please do. You'll find that I have a very, let's say, different way of viewing the world. I'm a very much a different style of thinking. I don't think like the rest. I'm very much different than everyone else, because most people they like to regurgitate the same shit every single day. But I like to go down rabbit holes and try and understand what is causing this or that, or what is interacting with this or that factor. And usually I come up with three conclusions. One, we've got no idea, and I'm honest about it. My subs know it. I always tell them, yep, we've got nothing to prove anything here. Or yes, I've found really strong evidence, or basically it's really unclear. And I have a hypothesis what it may, from a lot of inferences. That means there is strong statistical inferences for certain things, which are out of, if you exclude everything else, it's the most probable. But I make that quite clear that it's a hypothesis of probability and nothing else. So people are quite clear. Most other people don't. They will jump on something and because they want to, I don't know, it's the sensation or the clickbaiting or whatever what it is. You won't get that here. I'm not into that shit. If you want clickbait, check out the other channels. I'm into basically, does it actually work? Does it really help you? Will it actually make you healthier? Will it prevent you from getting sick or fixing something? That's all I'm interested in. I do this for free. I've got a day job. I don't have monetary interests in peddling any pseudo crap that most people do. So I hope you do find me interesting. If you don't, that's okay. I don't mind. Plenty of others that do. Yes. More holes than you can poke a stick at. Believe me. No, he's not that poor, believe me. Look, yeah, you can actually, my sister actually, she combines both egg yolk and egg whites in hers. And I actually do that a bit as well in my soups, but I usually put more of the whites because it's one way of actually, especially if I'm doing some of these other things that I do with the egg, especially sometimes I'll have like 6 eggs raw yolks and I'll put the whites away to be cooked. So actually, I like the way they actually slide down your throat. Anyway, I know what's going to happen now that I've said that. The other two rambling things are going to go, going to make up all sorts of stories. Let them go for it. You've got to give them some ammunition. These trolls are so fucking weak. That's all I can say. You're weak. I'm giving you ammo. Use it. Tried quail eggs recently. Okay. I have never tried quail eggs. Let me put it that way. I've tried duck eggs. I've had, I got duck eggs from a guy at work, and I've tried a few other type of bird type, but never quail. So, be interesting. What do they taste like? Don't tell me they taste like chicken. It didn't give me autoimmune response like chicken eggs do, but I did get nausea while taking out the trash a couple of hours. Don't know whether quails were. Yeah, I mean, I'd say the chicken ones probably had some certain grains with potentially other things that shouldn't be there. But yeah, look, I don't know enough to really say either way. But no, I haven't tried them. What are they like? Just put it. Kitty. Harry likes throat slipping slides. Yes. I was expecting you to basically make a comment like that. You know, not her. God, you've really basically taken Kitty and really led her down the path. God, I told you, Kitty, you've got to stop hanging around Bird Brain and Froggy. They are a bad influence. Oops. It's probably something Frankie would like. Lots of people seem to be good with duck eggs. Yeah, look, I don't mind duck eggs. They're actually quite nice. But I've never tried quail. That'd be interesting. I think they're smaller. It's probably the reason why they just seem too damn small. There's not enough egg stuff in there. Oh, they're just crazy. Humans have been fermenting foods. I mean, the Inuit basically had the thing where they would actually take a whole lot of like fish type things, and fish is high in PUFA, and they would basically throw it into a corner and cover it with snow and allow it to ferment. So it was basically a delicacy. It's an acquired taste, but it's a delicacy they consumed. And remember, the only population in the world that had never had cancer was the Inuit, a fully carnivorous society with also quite a bit of PUFA in the diet as well, and never had cancer, never recorded. Only in modern times, now that they're actually living in cities and eating kibble like the rest of us, now they're getting just as sick as us. But before, it was like a lot of people, if you look at the old literature, they thought that the Inuit were immune to cancer. Let me say it again. Old scientists of the past thought that cancer, that they were completely immune to it. So the Inuit never got cancer. Do you understand that? They even smoked. They were immune because of their diet and lifestyle. That's a slam dunk as far as I'm concerned, because first they consume fermented fish products and other things, and on top of that, they consume more PUFA than many others in the north. So what can I say? This is what and they'll go, oh, it's another paradox. Well, all your fucking arguments are full of paradoxes. It's like the sad dieters and all their fucking paradoxes. The French paradox, this paradox, that paradox. I mean, yeah, it's all paradoxes, isn't it? Because basically, they've got an agenda. Reductionism and pseudo crap is what they use, poor science like epidemiology and observation, in order to push narratives, guys. They want to push products. They want to push lifestyles. They want to push a whole lot of things that are based it on good science. If they had good science, the arguments would be over. They don't. And the best research actually shows the complete opposite. Whenever they do research, that other veg-tarded, Christopher Gartner from Stanford University. Remember him? He did a study. He was sick and tired of doing garlic studies, so he got into basically doing an actual food, an actual randomized control trial with having people on different diets, and ended up proving that Atkins was superior to Ornish and all the others. Got a lot of flack from Ornish, as people know. I've talked about it in the past. And then at the same period of time, some other crackpot veganer academic from Harvard went to the Israelis and said, oh, why don't we add to the direct study also the Atkins diet so they can prove it wrong? This happened about the same time that both studies were happening. One was published a bit after the other. And again, they proved the same thing. Since then, none of these people have ever done another study on Atkins. It's only been Finney and Volker and a few other low-carb academics that have done some research on ketogenic and all that. But that was sort of the last of the Atkins-type style, trials. Why? Because they don't want, if you actually start building up the level of evidence with more and more studies, eventually you can't hide the facts. But if you only do one or two studies, you can say, oh, that was just an aberration. It was a paradox, something strange. All the other studies, the bullshit epidemiological studies that are not very well controlled and are poor associations, they can say, oh, all these basically showed, show the opposite. It must be true. What a load of crap. But that's how they operate. Yes. I wish some of these assholes would debate me. I'd rip them a fucking asshole so wide you could run an entire freight train through. But they never give me a chance. See you, Shell. Good night to you as well. Take care. Thanks for being here. You're welcome, mate. Thanks for liking what I'm interested in and the sort of stuff that I'm about health of people. I want to help people. I'm not interested in if let's say a vegan diet was the optimal diet, I'd switch. It's not. The research doesn't show, the archaeological evidence doesn't show. So these people don't care about us. They don't care about their fellow humans. They basically have their own political agendas. They are motivated by politics and their own, and money politics and all sorts of other things. They don't care about us at all. We're just cannon fodder for them, for their wars and everything else that they want, or to be used as pawns in their industries or whatever else, so they can extract as much profit as they can out of our poor bodies until they discard them. Don't know. No idea. No idea, mate. No idea. Provide me some background, and then I'll be able to comment. I usually find when I do my own research and I dig deeper, I usually find things that are not disclosed. Yes, surprise, surprise. That's why some people hate me, because I will go out of my way to find all the dirt if I can, if it's there. You're a bad girl, you know. You're a really bad girl. You've been misled by those other two. Yes, yes. Thanks, Mandy. Look, when I turn up, he runs. He's soft. He's friggin' soft. No idea. Maybe genetics. Don't know. Honestly, no idea why it would actually be the case. So, where am I? I'll just check just in case Lukey's put anything in here. Lukey has not put anything in here. Yeah. The problem is with any research whatsoever, or any, let me put it this way, it's hard to know exactly, because there's a lot of people out there that will, I think, let me put it this way, I think the thing that most people would drive about that is that that because of high leucine in beef, that may be driving sort of the growth. But as I pointed out last time about, like tumor growth and stuff like that, when you're eating just a steak with fat on it, and that's it, the glucagon, the insulin to glucagon ratio is about 1.3. Potato is 4. Fasting is 0.8. So you can see fasting, a beef is just slightly above fasting, or meat. An all-you-can-eat buffet of McDonald's crap with fructose-laden shit and everything else potentially could get up to a ratio of 70. At that level, the level of mTOR activation, the level of IGF-1 activation, because remember, in primitive eukaryotic sort of organisms, if you go right back to the beginning, insulin and IGF-1 are the same. They've just basically, you could say, they've separated their roles and there's a division of labor, but really they are the same thing, you know. It's the other side of the coin, so to speak. So it's really it's really insulin IGF-1. They go in lockstep, and they tend, when IGF-1 goes up, it pulls up mTOR as well, you know, and they tend to move up in this lockstep way. So when you push growth factors up, they go together. You will never find a study that actually shows highly elevated mTOR and very low insulin. As I said to these crackpots, find me one fucking study that shows that, and I will fucking shut down my channel. But they can't come up with anything because it doesn't exist. You know, the reality doesn't exist. This over-exaggeration of mTOR or IGF-1 happens when you're engaging the Randall cycle and you're pushing up this ratio between the insulin and the glucagon side. That's when you see not only inflammation, everything else under the sun, but you see these growth pathways being upregulated in a big way. And that's what pisses me off with these people, is because they use reductionism to push a narrative agenda to basically, and ignore that a human body is a complex organism of complex interactions of different parts, which we not very well understand. But one thing that we know is when you eat a certain type and you look at these growth factors, they're down here. This is another reason why bodybuilders, in order to get more anabolism, throw in a lot of dairy and eggs, because the eggs do have a much more anabolic than beef, and so is the dairy products. And that's why, especially dairy, because it's got higher, if you think of it, whey in particular has double the insulin effect of basically pure glucose. So pure glucose is half that of whey, of pure whey. Whey will spike, but the difference is glucose will spike and then stay up elevated a bit longer. With whey, it's a quick spike and back down again. It doesn't stay up there for too long, elevated. And that's a good thing. So it drives muscle protein synthesis, but it doesn't. And that's why I say, get dairy in. Don't get the fucking, rice and all this sort of shit. You want more anabolism in that 90 minutes after, when leucine or the branched chain amino acids, you don't need to take a supplement, which are in whey, can be mostly utilized by the body at that moment. That's the time to throw it in there. That's what the old bodybuilders, they knew that. They used to have all these, remember the smoothies, the stuff that I've been talking about and stuff like that. They used to do that. It's well known, this sort of stuff. The sort of nonsense about beef and all that is just nonsense. There are many people that basically have got growths, and not only, benign growths, but also basically, active cancers. And the reality is they're eating beef and zero sugar. But they're eating more fat, just not, and that fat is lowering deuterium. So it's actually clearing out the deuterium. It's increasing energy production from mitochondrial function. And as mitochondrial function goes up, the body goes, you need to use fermentation. And also, when you're in that more ketotic state, you're actually putting more stress on the cancer cells to wipe them out. They can't handle that sort of environment. A ketotic environment is more stressful for them. So that's one reason. Add a bit of metabolic water and then some supplements, which will be in my future video, to inhibit the uptake of glutamate by cancer cells, and you can clear it out pretty fast. Anyway, that's for another day. So yes, these are the sort of things. The rest is just nonsense, reductionist garbage. Pisses me off no end. Anyway, these things aggravate me. What? What bullshit? You're the bad influence. God almighty. She's a nice, sweet thing, being misled by, by you, Froggy. And the other bird. Yeah, don't think you're going to escape. You're going to escape the actual the wrath. Blame her. God, both of them. God Almighty, piling into Kitty. Oh, it's her. We're innocent. I'm a little innocent little birdie. Bullshit. Tell that to somebody that believes it. Oh, creamy flavour. I'll have to, one of these days, I'll have to try and find a source to get them and try them. I don't know whether we can get them in Tasmania. That's the only problem. We're all naughty down then. Just been holding back because I'm a responsible admin. Yep, that's a good reason. You got to control the others. Yeah, that's right. He did. He did mention the titties. That's right. Yes, bad Bart. Bad bald man. Yeah. That should be his official nickname, bad bald man. Yeah. Oh, God, bats. How does one answer that? Oops. Respect admins. God, I run this and they don't respect me. Quickly scrolling through these, trying to get to the bottom. My first try in 41 days in carnivore. After being keto for 3 months, got worse with a really smelly urine. Okay, don't know. Could be an adjustment stage. You may be consuming too much meat, lean meat. I find a lot of people do. So that's another thing. Also, the quality of the meat can be a problem, especially for the prostate. Certain, xenoestrogens, whatever, different things. So there could be a number of other factors in that regard. And I find the majority of people when they transition from a keto type, because they're getting a lot of fats in like coconut oil and all these other things. And then when they go, it seems like they switch more away from fat, more to protein. And I always remind people, you've got to get the fat in. Women require more, but even men require a 1-to-1. You need more fat. People are just not getting enough. Look, at the end of the day, what works for you works for you. Play around. There are going to be differences amongst people in that regard. Yeah, look, they tend to be nutrient dense. And when people have some pathology, you require more nutrient density as well of things. So, and also a bit of fasting is really good as well. That does help with these sort of conditions, sort of having some like 3-day fasts, then having some foods, and then having the occasional later, like 1 day or whatever, is also another thing that actually helps with these sort of growth factors bringing them down, normalizing, because sometimes you may still have high elevated growth factors. I've said this to people that sometimes the best way to eliminate a lot of these high elevated growth factors, 72-hour fast. Doesn't matter what diet you're on and what diet you're coming to, 73-hour will normalize a lot of these sort of pathways very fast. So it's the quickest way, and then you can just basically do the carnivore with more fat, and things should be slightly better in that regard. Look, histamine's not a problem unless it's dysregulated in the body in that regard. And, you know, beef would have the least compared to fish would have more. Some eggs, possibly more, and chicken would have definitely more. So beef would be the least in terms of the histamine issue. So unless it's cured meats and stuff like that, which is what I consume. So no, don't over sort of, what is it called? Overthink certain things, and unless you've tested something, it's all speculation. Oh, so it's benign. Well, that's good, you know. That's good to hear. Okay. Well, consume the other animal foods. So maybe you've got a certain sensitivity to some of the actual proteins. Don't know, you know. These things sometimes are very hard because other people get other responses. They drop other foods and they have beef, they get better responses. So there can be genetic variations. Sometimes it's, you know, trial and error. I would basically go more towards lard than tallow. Usually people that have got growth factors, I want them on lower deuterium, because deuterium is a growth factor. So I usually push people towards pork fat and lard as a better thing in that regard, because of, so usually my sort of view is more pork fat, fish as well. Fish is, you know, omega-3s from fish, really good, even lower in deuterium, 102 parts, very low. So can help with the extra depletion of deuterium, so which is a growth factor. And you want your mitochondria to improve in order to basically clear out whatever they need to clear out and heal whatever they need to heal. So these are other things. Normalizing some of the hormones as well, like dealing with those sort of things, which is boron. You know, the old, I don't want you on high for a long time because that can cause imbalances, but going from 12 to 9 to, you know, a couple of weeks, 12, couple of weeks, 2 weeks, you know, at 9, then 6, and then down to 3, and staying at 3 is another good thing. Get the one that I actually suggest, which is the one that I've talked about a couple of times. And that one, let me just find it. There it is. It's the one from Life Extension. This has also got riboflavin in it, which is really good if you're on a low carbohydrate diet of any sort. Riboflavin, our requirements go up. And beef is a very good source. And if you're not having beef, I would rather you have something like that, because you're going to get a bit more riboflavin to support your fat protein metabolism. It's a bit like carbohydrates require more thiamine, double that of low carbohydrate diets, and it's the complete opposite when it comes to B2 riboflavin. You need more on our sort of diet. The sort of meats we have tend to have more, so this sort of covers that angle as well if any deficiencies exist. So back to it. Yeah, when it comes to cancers and growth factors, even benign stuff and all that, I usually recommend lower deuterium fats. Simple, because we need to basically fix any deuterium growth factors that are in the mitochondria, damaging our ability. So that's very important. Anyway, shit, is at the time. We've been running a bit too long today. G'day, mate. How's it going, Anthony? Good to see you. Do you know how lactic acid is metabolized, whether it may be an issue eating lots of highly cultured yogurts among with highly carnivorous diets? I don't see any real problem in that regard. I mean, some of the bacteria will use it in a sense. The body can utilize it all as well. Let's not forget lactic acid can be converted to glucose as well. So, but if you're very low, it's only going to be a small amount, which just will slow down demand-driven gluconeogenesis. So as I said, the amount of dairy is also, because if you take a look at the Maasai, they were very physically active. I don't recommend people have a lot of what is called milk sugars unless they are physically active. So if you're physically active, yes, or otherwise just stick to cheeses and stuff like that and whatever. When I have my milk, it's usually at times when I'm actually lifting weights. If I'm not lifting weights, and it's after I've lifted the weights, but it's I'm not going to do it in that regard. So and I usually lift weights in the evening as well, because it's more in tune with the circadian rhythms. Your body's warmer. Now, you can do it in the morning, because some people can't help but do it in the morning. And I know a friend of mine that does occasionally. What he does, he warms up. So he gets on a treadmill or on a bicycle, warms up his core mass. But at the same time, the biggest problem with doing it in the morning, a lot of this sort of stuff, is because of high elevated cortisol, it tends to be more catabolic. There is some stuff in the literature, and some people say, well, your body can adapt to it. I don't know how much. It's not like rock solid science. So I tend to usually say in the late afternoon, between 4 and about 6, 7, depending, summer, 6, in winter, probably around. So you could probably shift it 2 hours, like 5 to 7 in summer, and 4 to 6 or 1 hour, sorry, or 4 to 6 6, it's the 2 hour range, but it can be from the 4 to 6 in the actual winter period. And because you have to think about people's work as well, people are working, and then basically the 5 to 7 sort of window in that. Now, there are people that do it later. Like my mate, sometimes he finishes late work, so he goes to the gym much later to lift weights. Yeah, depends. But at the same time, your core body temperature is higher, and you can really just get into it much easier. So it's much better. Yeah, it depends on a lot of factors. I wouldn't get too wound up. People sort of make a big issue of very little. So, unless you're consuming massive amounts, it's a different story altogether. in that regard. I'm thinking about something about particular beef protein. We'll try to add lamb one night. Yeah, look, try different types, goat, try different things and see how you feel, you know. Yes, key for God. Depends. It really depends. Depends on the physical activity. It depends on the amount of what calories you're taking in at specific times. There's a lot of issues there as well, you know. Also increasing your creatine and sort of being able to last longer, to be able to burn through more, can also help. So there is so many factors that are at play, you know. Obviously, if you're a couch potato, that's a different story. But none of us, the majority of us, are quite more active than others. So in that regard. Yep, check it out. There it is. There it is. So you're in that sort of, look, it may be benign and it may never affect you. So this is a problem. A lot of doctors sometimes, you know, most people with prostate issues usually die with it. Don't die from it. A very small minority die. And if they are going to die, they usually basically, it goes from the moment you get the growth, it goes quite cancerous quite quickly. And I've seen that in a couple of people, especially one of my closest friends. His father died that way, and it usually goes quite rapidly in that direction. So most people actually die with it rather than from it. So, but it can create some issues and stuff like that, obviously. Had one friend that actually had surgery, so had it drilled. That's how he dealt with it. Make sure you have a real good surgeon if you're going to do that in that regard. But obviously there are other ways of utilizing, you know, lifestyle factors and stuff like that, and changing the growth pathways, minimizing those growth factors. You know, generally you should be eating much better now and probably minimizing those. But yeah, it's something that I want to do some stuff into and do a bit of deeper research, which I haven't done, because it does affect men's health. And you know, I do the occasional stuff there in regards to men or women, like the more recent one, which is how to focus on women, but it does affect men as well in sort of bone loss and stuff like that. Yeah, so I'll look into doing something at some stage next year. It's on the cards to do. It's on my do list, and I have some ideas about, you know, sort of balancing out, you know, hormones and all sorts of other things. But there's a couple of rabbit holes that I haven't gone down yet, and I do want to go down there. And I usually find some pearls of wisdom that I never knew about. And sometimes I rethink my whole idea about something. So I'll be doing that next year, and you'll probably get a video sometime in January. There's a couple of videos that I'm actually, because I'm doing heavy research at the moment on cancer and on a whole lot of different pathways in how to really have a protocol that actually is the best out there. I'm talking about the best. I'm only interested in the best. If it doesn't work or it just partially works, I'll probably say it in my live streams, but I won't bother making a video of it until I'm confident enough that I've got something that can really do, not magic, but really do the business, so to speak, or, you know, get the results. You're welcome, Mandy. And yeah, see ya. And I'm going to basically call it a day as well, you know, in that regard. Thanks, Harry. Good incentive to start working out again. Yeah, it definitely is. Because a lot of fermented dairy has been a lifesaver for IBS and microbiome. Yep, it has, because it has a lot of the bacteria that we lose. A lot of the actual, rhamnosus, reuteri, a lot of these type of bacteria are so beneficial. They've existed in mammalian organisms for millions of years. The problem is modern antibiotics overuse, things like glyphosate. A lot of us, foods that we consume that we don't even realize have it in there. And they have an antibiotic and really affect these. These are much more sensitive. The pathogenic ones are much more capable of surviving. I mean, like H. pylori, you can throw glyphosate out in antibiotics, and most of the antibiotics do not work on H. pylori. They have to do a specific combination, and even those struggle to actually clear out H. pylori. You really have to go hard on acidifying your stomach to try and knock it out to minimize its, and then use things like reuteri, lactobacillus reuteri, that actually goes and literally takes those fuckers out and reduces them even more in numbers. And those are the acid loving bacteria. And what causes the best acidity, lower stomach acidity? It's animal products. So when you get that, you end up with a better microbiome, because all these are, but the problem is they are sensitive. And that is the problem of these probiotics, these bacterial strains that are so healthy for the body, immunoregulating and everything else under the sun. Your bones, improving your bone health. All these sort of modern diseases that we've got, there is an interaction between the foods we eat, and those foods are affecting the type of bacterial colonies that we have that are also involved in the regulation. And when we fuck up the food side, we fuck up that side as well. And then when we add glyphosate and everything else under the sun, we really fuck it up for good. And that's why we've seen an explosion in all these diseases, IBS and all that. They didn't exist before glyphosate and overuse of antibiotics. So obviously these foods, the grains and all that, are the sort of the vehicle that bring it in. But, it's a bit more involved as well. Yep. Yeah. Good. Should try the kefir. That's one thing me and my mates want to actually try and get some of these strains before the Australian government doesn't allow them in. And because they are just, each time somebody puts up to bring another strain in, they ban it until they can test it. Fuckwits. So it's better to get them in before they do that, and then we can basically have our own kefir, and we don't really have to give a shit whether we can buy them or not. So several types of beef allergens. That's true. Some people are susceptible to them. Sometimes they're also susceptible due to certain tick bites. That's as well. That's another issue in itself. That's another rabbit hole. Iodine as well. Iodine and selenium, both iodine and selenium are very helpful. So you've seen my videos on selenium and stuff like that, and some of the seafood and some of the information. Go and check that out, see what the sources are. Eggs are great sources. Liver is great source of selenium and iodine. Yep. And Yep, definitely MK4. That's the one. That's the key one. Look, it helps. MK4 in particular has to be MK4. That's what I've seen the good. MK7. Yeah, it's MK4, because in the soft tissue, it's MK4 that regulates soft tissue calcification and where it goes. Because sometimes in some areas, MK4 will drive calcium in to suppress certain viruses and other things and that. And in other places, it will remove it, like especially in arteries and places like that, where it shouldn't be. So, yeah, it's a Swiss Army knife of things. That's why the body loves it. It's the animal form of K2. Thanks. Only at night after I've done too many things, I'm wasted, I can tell you. Anyway, thanks, Honest. Thanks, everyone. I'm basically out of here. That is it. I would have loved to stay longer, but, you got to stop it somewhere. I need the hours for next week. I'll run out otherwise. Anyway, see you all. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day and then following week. Hopefully I'll have a couple of new things out next week as well. So don't know. And there's also the Wednesday. Remember, Pim has got a chat with me on Wednesday morning. Don't forget. And that is the Australasian Eastern Standard Time. So if it's in the morning, it should be in the evening on Tuesday evening, stateside. Okay. See you guys and take care and be good to each other. Except T2 and T1. Go for them. You've got my blessing. See you guys.